Today is October 14th. We are going to enter into executive session at 6:28 p.m. to discuss proposed contract matter 2.1, individual employee, contract matter 2.2, individual employee, 2.3, legal matter, individual employee, 2.4, personnel matter, administrative tenure, 2.5, negotiations matter, BHTA, and 2.6, negotiations matter, CSEA.
Motion.
A motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Okay, thank you. We'll see you shortly. Thanks. I always forget that.
I apologize.
That motion. No, I appreciate that.
Good
Good evening, everyone. We're gonna call this meeting to order. It's October 14th, 2025. We're calling it at 7:54. We went into exec session at 6:28. We discussed contract matter, individual employee 2.1, 2.2, contract matter, individual employee, 2.3, legal matter, individual employee, 2.4, personnel matter, administrative tenure, 2.5, negotiations matter, BHTA, 2.6, negotiations matter, CSEA. And I would like to ask our newest board member, ex officio board member, Dylan Gash, to lead us tonight in the pledge. Would you like to do that?
Welcome, Dylan.
Welcome, Dylan.
Got his first job.
Okay.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Very good job. Ken is taking a picture that's makes some
Practicing it long enough.
Thank you. Okay, and we're going to move to comments from the public. We have a gentleman this evening that would like to address the board. We don't know him. We've never seen him before. Who are you? State your name.
I just moved into town. I'm curious about how this all works.
Okay.
First of all, it's really wonderful to see all of you. It's interesting from this side of the room how late you start your meetings.
We learn from the best.
That's right.
Touche, Scott.
That's it. Touche. The reason I came here tonight was I had read or heard about the retirement of the Byram Hills basketball coach, that he's not going to be coaching again this year. And I'm sure in time that the school district and others will appropriately celebrate this man. But I just wanted to say a few words about what I believe he meant to the program and to the district. I mean, he took a basketball program that was 500 at best, and now we're disappointed if we don't make it to the sectional finals. And in Section 1, Class A, that's really remarkable. And the basketball coach has been just a beacon of understanding for the players. He's been wonderful to the district, to his students. But what he did as a coach, turning a program literally on its head for so many years, and the time and devotion it takes to do that, really merits this commendation. I mean, so I know you'll do it. I know you'll handle it appropriately because that's what Byram Hills Boards of Education do. But I just wanted to comment and send my personal, heartfelt congratulations to Teddy on a wonderful, wonderful career as head basketball coach at Byram Hills, and for all the things he's done for us. I know he's now taking a side gig at Iona. They're lucky to have him, as we were lucky to have him for over 20 years. So
He's not retiring.
no, just his basketball coach. Just basketball.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
Just basketball
Yes.
coach. And he's really had a great run. So to all of you, it's wonderful to see you.
However, you don't see maybe you didn't see our social media, but at the board's direction, they sent out something through athletics, just really commemorating him for all of his years of service and
we should,
all the
because
accolades.
we have one or two other coaches who have put in quite the distinguished tenure, and they'll get celebrated at the time, but it's Teddy's time now. And so I'm sure you'll do right by him, but I just wanted to say that, from my view, his contributions to the district athletically and as a teacher but particularly as basketball coach, we're sensational. So thank you for the opportunity to address you all. It is wonderful to see you. I'm sure we'll be seeing each other again. Congratulations to the author.
Yes.
Scott. I'm waiting for my autographed copy.
I got one. It's really good.
Yeah, I have not gotten one. You know, but it's wonderful to see all of you, so thank you.
Ira, thank you so much for
Ira.
coming. Wait, you can't go yet.
What?
I would like to know, are Gina Cunningham and I still reserving a seat for you when our boys get to the county center or any other
I
team?
was there Saturday afternoon at the boys soccer game. Saturday night I was there. I'll be at the county center, as I always am.
Well, as a 23-year Board of Education member and 8-time president, the fact that you're still coming back to root on Byram Hills is pretty amazing, and we
Always.
appreciate you.
Always. Thank you. Great to see you.
You could stay, Ira.
Thank you,
I was
Ira.
thinking about waiting to go through the agenda, but
Thank you.
Thank you.
Trying to do it before this.
Oh, yeah. Yep, it is. Item 13.
I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna
Yeah,
switch it
you're
around.
gonna switch it.
Okay, got it. So is that considered a revision or no?
No.
No. Okay, great. So, okay, thank you. Moving on, everyone. We thank Ira Schulman for that lovely speech about Coach. And we're gonna celebrate him.
So great.
Later on. Okay, so we're gonna move to, number 5. We're gonna do, revision and adoption of tonight's agenda. There's no revision, so can I have a motion to adopt the agenda for this evening?
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, aye. Just remember that Jason's not here, right? Okay, great. Thank you. And then we're gonna move to the consent agenda. We're gonna, can I ask everyone to approve 6 personnel and 7 consent agenda and 8 7 consent agenda special services and 8 consent agenda business. Have a motion?
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, thank you so much. And then we are going to go right to number 13. We're gonna skip around a little bit to new business, and I'm going to ask for your report, Chris, tonight. So this is an acceptance of the external audit report, fiscal year 2024-25. And if you can just address us for a moment with your report. Thank you so much.
Good evening, members of the Board of Education. I'm Christopher Angata, partner at Rocky Smith, and I'm here this evening to present the results of the 24-25 audit. But first and foremost, on behalf of my entire firm, I just want to thank the Board of Education for your continuing confidence in retaining my firm as your independent auditors. I'm here to give you a brief presentation as the results of the 24-25 audit. Just to confirm the scope of our services, Rocky Smith was retained by the district to perform an audit of the district's financial statements for the year ended June 30th, 2025 in accordance with professional standards. We also performed an audit of the district's extraclassroom activity funds on a cash basis of accounting. And as part of our audit, we do contemplate issuing a management letter presenting any findings or recommendations on approving the accounting procedures and internal controls. A few comments on the conduct of the audit. I'd like to commend the district on a satisfactory closing of its books and records. This year, as always, we received excellent cooperation and attention from the business office. And in that regard, I just want to give special recognition and thank you to both Kelly and Susan for their tremendous efforts with respect to the and as usual, the district will be filing timely with respect to the requisite deadline, which is October 15th, which is tomorrow. So those reports will be finalized with the state tomorrow. There are 2 auditor's reports contained in our financial statements. Both are clean or unmodified, meaning that the financial statements of the district present fairly in all material respects in accordance with professional standards. Just a few comments on the district's financial statements. There was the general fund annual budget was within the tax cap as promulgated by New York State and operated positively when compared to budget. The general fund balance amounts were all within reasonable and legal limits. There was a negative change in general fund balance this year. In terms of the district's statement of net position, capital assets this year, net of depreciation, totaled $64.2 million. Current year capital project expenditures were $5.9 million, relating to various projects throughout the district. And that was primarily funded via a budget transfer from the general fund. The district did reduce long-term indebtedness by about $2.4 million this year. The other post-employment obligations, that is the largest liability on the statement of net position, which is the full accrual financial statements of the district. That amount did decrease this year about $14.3 million to a total of $143.2 million. With respect to the other pension plans on the district's balance sheet, the district did share in the net pension asset related to the teacher's retirement system plan. of $6.2 million, and did share in the liability of $5.6 million with respect to the employee retirement system plan. As I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, we do contemplate issuing a management letter presenting any findings or recommendations. This year, we did have one recommendation to offer with respect to the Extraclassroom activity funds, and there was one prior year recommendation with respect to the capital projects and the capital evaluation of capital assets for the district, which is still in the process of being implemented. That concludes my presentation for this evening, but I'd be happy to address any questions the board may have. Thank you.
And I'd like to add that Chris met with the board already, so this isn't like as fast as it happened.
And we appreciate your
And
time.
that's why we were
Yes.
late.
For the audit.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Thank you so much. So, okay, great. So I'm just going to ask for a motion to accept the acceptance of the internal audit report for 2024-25 fiscal year extra classroom activity fund report and management letter.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Okay, and then also it's a second action, right, Kelly, here? The third report, also 13.4, the APPR undue burden independent evaluator hardship waiver. We have a,
Okay, you wanna do that? Okay.
is that now? Is that under, it's
We can
under
do
the
that, we
order?
can go back to that.
We can go back to that later?
Yeah.
Okay,
We can
great.
continue on the agenda and come back to that.
Okay, we'll go back. All right, so thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. It's wonderful
Thank
seeing
you,
everyone.
Chris, for all the hard
Thank
work,
you.
yeah.
I'm safe.
Thanks, Chris.
Got it, okay. Sorry, we're skipping around a little bit now. We're gonna go back.
Thank you, Susan.
Oh, number nine.
Number 9.
So we,
Thanks.
something very exciting is happening tonight.
Yes.
Tonight we have our very first ever ex officio board member. So, you know, first for Byram Hills. So don't you feel like we should have something up that says you were the, you know, the person at the inception? Dylan Gash is here as our ex officio student board member. We are very excited. This will be a rotation. I think you'll maybe explain that a little. But I would love for you to have the opportunity to introduce yourself to our board and the community. I know you met with Mia already today. Sure, yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Dylan Gash. I'm Vice President of our Byram Hills Central School District. I'm a captain on the football team. I do track. I'm a peer leader for health. This year, the seniors in student government will serve as ex officio members, student representatives from the high school. Our goal this year is to share updates about the exciting events and initiatives happening at Byram Hills High School in the spirit of increasing communication, transparency, and collaboration with the Board of Education. We're excited to represent the student body and serve as a bridge between students and the board, working to strengthen the connection between our school and the broader community. It's been a busy and exciting start to the school year. Earlier in the fall, our annual club fair on September 19th featured over 60 clubs, giving students a chance to explore their interests and get involved in new ways. Friday, October 3rd, there was an election day. Our new student government is ready to build on last year's success as they begin setting their vision for the year ahead. Spirit Week took place last week, featuring fun and spirited themes like Neon Day, Pajama Day, and Bobcat Spirit Day, which made students excited to come to the school and see what their classmates dressed up as. All of our homecoming
Hold on,
games...
Dylan. Dr. Lamia on cue.
This was not planned.
It's pretty cool. Where were you in that left-hand picture?
I was like by the 50-yard line. Close to the bleachers.
Somewhere in the 50-yard
great.
line. Yeah,
Found him.
but super cool, everybody in all the buildings. Keep going, Dylan.
All of our homecoming games brought in a great crowd. Several varsity teams also had the opportunity to compete under the lights, making it an exciting week for our athletes. As we said at the start, one of our main goals this year is to continue building a strong partnership with the Board of Education, and we're really looking forward to collaborating and sharing more throughout the year.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Yes, we were, you'll see the football players coming out, and captain of the football team. What number are you?
72.
72. All right. I don't see you there.
I'm right behind,
You're right behind him?
getting blocked.
Ah.
Are you the legs?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's your leg.
The legs under the flag.
That's great. And to the left, you might want to consider one day, we were doing the ribbon cutting for the alumni walkway, which has a beautiful bobcat thanks to the BHEF, and many alumni's names inscribed in the bricks. alumni can do that now. And what was really nice is seeing alumni come back and taking their picture with their brick, which was super cool as well. And I have to say, what an amazing game, an amazing community event, and we were all really proud of you. I specifically like to point out the kids who were in the front. You see like the student carrying the flag. That was during the night game. They were a supportive crowd of that football team in a way that I've never seen before. I mean, it was great. They didn't move. They found their spot and they never moved from it, and they stayed and they cheered the entire game, so. You have a good group of people behind you.
We are very excited to have you here, and having sat on many committees in the schools with students on those committees, it's always wonderful to hear that perspective and see all the things that we do here through the students' lens. So we're very excited to collaborate. Happy that you're here.
So I had lunch with them today, and there's gonna be 4 of them that are gonna rotate coming to the meetings. Potentially 2 extras, because all 4 of them are 2 sport athletes, so their schedule is pretty booked. So if they have games when there's board meetings, there are 2 additional student representatives, what were they called, class representatives?
Yeah, like,
That can rotate.
Class
in.
officers?
Class officers that'll rotate in.
And Dylan, did we say you're the vice president?
yeah.
Yes, we did.
So we've got the president, vice president, treasurer, and
Secretary.
secretary.
Thank you for doing the civic duty. It's important. It's
Yeah.
really important that we hear your views.
So Dylan, typically I do student highlights at the very end of the board meeting, but now I'm gonna be moving them so that I can, look, I was like in queue, it was almost like you prepped me for it. So I'll talk a little bit more about some students who we would like to recognize at this point. We had 14 of our students commended for National Merit Scholarship Program, pretty amazing. They're among the top 50,000 students who entered the competition when they took the PSATs. And we are very proud of them. It's a large group. Global Scholars students shining at the International Day of the Girl Conference. Thank you to Jen Layden, who took these students there to Manhattanville College on October 9th, and they celebrated female leadership, empowerment, global change. They went to workshops and talked about how young women can make a difference. Really, pretty amazing. Thank you to Jen and our representatives, and this was outstanding. I don't know if everybody had a chance to stop by the art show. There were adjudicators there, and we had these judges award ribbons to our students. I am not at all surprised. Angelina winning first place, Julia second place, and Sarah third place. And I'll show you all 3. This is Angelina's on the right. I mean, it's just, I can't even imagine somebody can do that. It's pretty incredible. Julia. And Sarah. That's great.
Looks like the screen.
Very impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had our students named by the Special Olympics in our Unified Sports Program, which you know promotes friendship and inclusion. We have so many kids who are involved in that, most recently in our flag football unified program. And last March, they presented our program statewide. In October, we were honored as Special Olympics New York Champion Banner School, which meant, I'm not sure if anybody can recognize the guy on the left in the picture, but our kids went and met Eli Manning, and the flag football team trained with the New York Giants at MetLife Stadium. This was made possible through the NFL, New York State Public High School Athletic Association, and Special Olympics of New York in Section 1. So pretty cool day. Yes, pretty awesome. And that's it.
Thank you, Jen.
Those are our student highlights.
Okay, great. So we're moving on to special report number 10, Board of Education recognition.
Yes. Oh, this is so nice. So, nowadays we're all about the homemade gift.
Yeah.
Funny inside joke, not so funny. So I would like to thank our technology department and Colin, who were able to put this together, etched in Byram Hills. It smells really great. It smells like a bonfire, doesn't it? Really beautiful for our board. I would like to thank our board members who have all been so giving of themselves and their time and service to this district, and this is made by your Byram family with love to all of you. Thank you for everything that you have been doing and continue to do to support the kids in this district. And for doing it with positive energy always. So thank you very much.
Thank you so
This one's
very
for Jason
much.
Byram.
A pleasure and an honor. Okay, great. Okay, and that brings us to our guest this evening, special report number 2, curriculum conversation. And 2025-2026 administrative goals. I think we're gonna throw it over to Tim. Dr. Coulter.
You want to say anything, or?
Yeah,
Oh,
well.
sorry, Jen, will be first.
We are welcoming tonight our administrators to talk to us first about MTSS. So we have Christine Doherty, we have Colleen O'Connor, who's here, and Kevin Guidotti, and Megan McCauley, who will talk to us first about MTSS. And we want to thank you because these conversations are so rich and so important to us, but we also understand that you have been present in these buildings since maybe 7:30 this morning. So this is a long day, so we appreciate it and we're all excited to hear what you have to say about MTSS, which has been something district-wide we've been working on for quite a while, but you four in particular have given it a great amount of effort.
Right, so thank you, thanks for being here. We'll talk about MTSS first, then we'll transition to talking about artificial intelligence, and then we'll have Lisa talk about an update from the math department work. So we have a full evening, but I invite the board, just jump in at any time or get my attention if I'm not looking at you, but feel free to ask questions, it's meant to be a discussion. So first, I'll talk about the goals development process, because this also is about the goals, and if you have any questions about our goals in general, we can certainly address those as well. We always start with our mission statement, and I've shown this slide many times. We start with board goals, and then from the board goals, the administrators develop goals. We talk about that at our administrative retreat every summer, and then based on the administrator goals, teachers set goals, and then the idea is that the alignment of goals impact student outcomes positively over time. And that's why I believe we have such strong results over time, is that alignment of our goals consistently, and we reflect on that every year. So with that, we'll jump into MTSS, and our goal tonight is to talk about how do we support students with a range of diverse learning needs, which is what the multi-tiered system of supports is designed to do, and you'll hear about that process tonight. And then also talking about the role of special education in MTSS. So that's sort of our big purpose. And I want to start with sort of this definition of MTSS, which is somewhat technical. So I'm going to have Megan explain that and break it down. But let me first give a little bit of an overview of our process. Jen mentioned that we've been working on MTSS for a few years. So 3 years ago, I convened an MTSS study group. So we began exploring our MTSS process. The impetus was we had to revise our plan, and I wanted to tighten up and make sure our systems were aligned K-12. So that was sort of the goal of it. I brought together a team of good thinkers, including this group. Dwayne and Lisa have also been part of that when we've talked about the secondary level, as well as the principals in each building, and some other teachers and support specialists have been involved in those teams. We brought in an expert researcher to help us, who was an expert in MTSS from New York University, and she guided our first year study of MTSS, which led us down a pursuit of goals at each building. And since 3 years ago, we've been working toward those specific goals each year. I've shared some at previous board meetings with you. So tonight we want to just sort of see where we are in that process and where we're headed to next. That's sort of our overall process with that. So Megan, can you break down MTSS for us, for those here and those listening at home who might not understand sort of the jargon of this? What is MTSS in general?
Sure, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. So MTSS stands for the multi-tier systems of support. And I think first and foremost, the most important thing to know about MTSS is that it's not a single program, it's not an initiative, it's literally the foundation that sets every system and structure we do inside schools to support kids. Right? And so when we're thinking about MTSS, we're really looking at having high quality instruction and ensuring that our interventions really meet the individual needs of our students, and that all our decisions are really anchored in data.
You talked about curriculum and interventions, which we'll get to. Let me show this next slide, which is sort of this classic slide around MTSS, which talks about tiers of support. Megan, can you talk about what these tiers represent and where they sort of the trajectory or the student flow through these tiers based on the MTSS process?
Yes, so it's when your children enter the classroom. Tier 1 is entering into their classroom. That's the high quality instruction that the teacher's giving inside the classroom to support both the academics but also the social emotional aspects of our children. I'm gonna focus more on the academic component tonight, but I wanna make note that it's both elements. It speaks to what the teacher's doing, what the curriculum they're using inside their classroom, how they're differentiating instruction to support the needs that they see present based off how students are responding. It could be through small group instruction, it can be through one-on-one. So really start with good, high quality tier 1 instruction. When that's good, when that's a space where our kids are succeeding, then we're gonna have smaller numbers when we get into tier 2 and tier 3. So let's say we have a child that's demonstrating that they need a little bit more support than what they're getting inside the classroom. That's where tier 2 comes in. So tier 2 is supplemental. It's not in lieu of, it's in addition to, right? So for example, I get really good instruction in math inside the classroom, still struggling with some components that I need a little more support. I would then get pulled at another time, not during that math block, to continue to develop in that small group what I need. If I'm not responding, because we're always looking for children to be responding. So if a child's responding and making progress, then we know what we're doing is working for them. But if they're not, now we need to dig a little bit deeper. So that might be where we go into like a tier 3 intervention. That's gonna be a little bit more intensive, a little bit more support, and it can even be done one-on-one.
So that's a good explanation as they go through it. So there's a lot that happens to make those decisions. So what guides the decision-making process if I'm a classroom teacher, student struggling? How do I know whether the student should go to tier 2? Is it my decision? Who's making the decision? What am I basing it on? Is it just my feeling like, Kelly really needs to go to tier 2? Give him some help.
It's always a collaborative decision, but it's always a collaborative decision that's anchored around solid data. Right, so one of the first things we do is called something a universal screener. I don't know if you want to show that slide. So a universal screener, we administer 3 times a year, the beginning, middle, and end of the year. They're short, quick assessments. It's really like imagine if we cast a wide net out and we want to ensure that we're really capturing students that are demonstrating us they need a little extra support. They're short, 15 on average minute assessments that our students do.
In all subjects or?
In reading and math. Those are the
Is this
two.
just an elementary
This is
level?
K through 5 or K through 12?
So we do K through 8, right, in terms of our universal screener data.
Is this the same test that we were using a few years ago to get that?
assessment.
We changed assessments, so
Changed it.
we were using a product called iReady.
Right, that's
That
what I remember.
was, we actually purchased that during COVID because we
Right.
weren't getting the state test in 2020, but also using it as a universal screener. That was a longer test, and iReady is more of a diagnostic, which Megan will talk to the purpose of that in a moment. We had switched 2 years ago during our study, we recognized the need to switch to a different universal screener because iReady was too long for a screener. It was taking 2 hours per assessment. It's 4 hours to assess kids per universal screener 3 times a year. So we switched to a different product, Renaissance Star, which we're still in pilot phase. We haven't officially adopted it yet, so we want to be sure it's the right one for us. And
Does it still give you benchmark data?
it does. So let's segue to Kevin. We'll come back to the details of the assessment system. Kevin, can you talk a little bit about what how iReady works and what the benchmarking system is? And what,
Or not already?
star data, thank you.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of detail that Tim's kind of didn't talk about, which is 2 years ago when we started looking at iReady, we took the time as an MTSS study group to look at what are our needs for a universal screener. The idea being trying to balance also the amount of time that students are spend assessing to give us the appropriate amount of information. And really the purpose of a universal screener is to identify students who need further diagnostics, so that not all students are taking those long assessments that they're doing. So this is kind of, think of it as a focusing tool that we're using. The logical question next is, so you take the universal screener data and how are you determining what students do you use to actually to get that need to have a diagnostic administered to them? The STAR assessment has a nationally normed standards that they use for that, and they have recommended benchmarks that they use. The term they use is benchmarks. It's divided into 4 categories that they use, both for ELA and for math. what we've learned over the last year of studying, this is one of the reasons it's still in a pilot phase, is that what the national benchmarks are that STAR suggests that we use are a bit lower than what our students are typically performing at. So we took our data once we administered it, I think it was 2 times last year before we started to notice this trend, and we worked with STAR psychometricians and some other partners that we have to really dig into our data to find out, hey, what is the appropriate metrics that we should be using on your platform? Luckily, STAR has many metrics that they provide for us, and we were able to zero in, and we're still in the process of testing and making sure, but to zero in on making sure that we're using the right data points within STAR at the right cut points for our students locally here at Byram Hills, who do on average perform higher than national or even a local for that.
Yeah, if the benchmarks are off, we could either think all of our students are doing fine or most students are, and we'll miss students that should be getting intervention, or the reverse could happen. If it's too rigorous, we're putting students in a tier 2 intervention that don't need it.
Right.
So we want to get that right. And Kevin's been working hard with other experts, with the folks at this company to try to understand our data. And he's not, what you're not saying is what Kevin did, is he decided to do a little assessment when our kids assessed, I think it was at the end of last year. He went into the data, he applied some new metrics to it, some new benchmarks, predicted the students that would need support, and then he had our specialists look at the way they do it all, and they came up with the same list of students using multiple measures of students. So we're finding this could be a good predictor, could be landing on something that's gonna help us target those students that really need the support.
Yeah, there's two points just to follow up on that. One is that we're talking about the MTSS system. We're fortunate in a number of ways here. One is that most of our students, as you know, stay with us from kindergarten through 12th grade. And that provides us with an amazing opportunity to study the data and to look longitudinally at what's really happening here. So as opposed to a district that might have more transient population, this is a really benefit to us. The other is that we know with outcomes measures that we're doing a really good job of making sure that students get the support that they need. Our the assessment report that Tim gives every year shows that. And so we have the opportunity to build these MTSS processes and assess their efficacy relative to what we've done in the past. So when we look at these metrics, we're able to do what Tim said, which is to look at the STAR data, apply other measures together and find a composite to make sure that we're identifying the right groups of students. The other piece to this that hasn't yet come up but will is that we also have we're working hard on creating a data system to bring all of these measures that we have under a single pane of glass, so that we're not trying to marry different systems together to be able to see how all the assessments that we're giving work together. We have a single system that we're able to put this stuff together with and identify the students and then monitor their progress within the MTSS system.
I just realized that Dylan might not know who everybody is, so maybe we can just do a quick.
Oh, we had a
Intro.
full meet and greet before you came.
Oh, you did? Oh, yeah.
He's an expert now.
Great.
Thanks. So we start with this universal screener, short test, lets us know probably most students are where they should be on grade level. These students need some other supports, and then we go to tier 2. To get to tier 2, we need to understand them more, and that's where diagnostic comes in. So
Yes,
Megan, you just
so that's where we're gonna use an assessment, not with everybody, but with students that we really need to understand what is it they specifically need support in. What is the specific skills or strategies that they need that additional support in. A diagnostic would normally be a longer test. It could be administered one-to-one. So let's say again, I'm in 3rd grade, I showed on my universal screener that I might need some support in math. I would then meet with one of the math specialists who would do something like a Slauson assessment, a longer assessment, it's gonna be one-on-one, but from that assessment, the specialist will then be able to say, I'm noticing Megan really needs support with computation, particularly in addition and subtraction. That's my starting point with her, so that she's gonna develop a strong foundation in order to be able to transfer that learning back into the classroom. So the diagnostic is really used in the specialist's hands to help them pinpoint what's the specific skill that child needs.
So it was something like resource room, would that be 2, 3, or special services.
Good question to segue.
Yes.
Great segue.
That's what the wrong way. So let's go back to this triangle, great question. So let's talk about special education's role in this, because we've been talking general education practices, or practices for all kids. Sometimes, some folks believe MTSS is general education only and special education isn't even part of the conversation. We don't believe that here. We think it's all students that we're looking to support, and special education has a role in this. Do you want to talk a bit about the flow of the triangle and where special education fits, and then we'll get to Mia's unpacking this question.
So to me, special education and MTSS are intrinsically linked, because what we're really talking about is how do we support all students? And there's certain legal ramifications around MTSS and special education. For instance, in order to qualify for an IEP, a student has to be classified under one of 13 classifications. And some of that data that we look at for classification is, did they respond to MTSS supports? So MTSS helps us identify who actually should be classified from a legal standpoint. But additionally, often parents will reach out to us saying, my student is struggling, I think I want to refer them to special education. And they think that that's really the only answer when their student is struggling. And the reality that's very important for parents to know is there's multiple different layers of support. What we're aiming to do is provide the right support to each student. We don't want to over-support students because we want to provide independence, because we want to see them flourish and develop those skills on their own. But MTSS is like a critical piece that helps us determine the exact right level of support for special education. And Mia, to your question, so Resource Room is a special education program. It lives under special education and would be recommended by a CSE to a student. There are other programs that also support executive functioning skills, and many of the pieces that would be worked on in Resource Room, like at the lower levels that would support students reading, they could work one-on-one with a reading specialist through tier 3 intervention. But Resource Room itself is a special education program.
So when you talk about the small groups, it's the classroom teacher and potentially a specialist that pushes it.
Or it could be a pullout, depending
Tier
upon.
2 and tier 3.
Yeah.
Right, and how do we decide on what we do a diagnostic, and so, you said, you mentioned you might need support in a particular math skill, or it could be a particular, say, we need, your phonics is not quite strengthened yet, you're below grade level. It could be phonics is the area you need to focus on. How do we decide on what type of intervention the program or strategies that are used?
So it's really important that we know what the child needs, because we want to make sure we're giving them the right support, the right intervention, right? We don't want to say we have this intervention, now we want to match the child. It's we have this child, this is the need, what's the intervention to support that child, right? So that's number one. And then we also develop very, very specific exit criteria, right? So the goal is we want to see the child making progress with this intervention, right? And then notice, is it something that they now can just receive tier 1 instruction and they don't need the supplemental, or they're making progress, we want to continue with the supplemental because this is really contributing to the success of the child. So that's where progress monitoring comes in. It's really important that we progress monitor in a more consistent basis, on a weekly basis, to really see how the child is responding to the intervention, to then know, is this the right decision, is this the right support for this child at this time?
So, yeah, just as that support is given, we're monitoring the progress to see if students are ready to go back up the triangle. So it's bi-directional here, it goes both ways. And with that, Colleen, if you can speak to, or Christine, if you want to speak to special education, you could have a classified student who is declassified. What happens in that case when we're going back up the triangle?
So I can talk about that. When a student is declassified, it's typically after a reevaluation, which happens every 3 years. So what that means is the student is reassessed in the areas that they're currently receiving special education support in. So the Committee on Special Education is looking at the profile of the student, the data, the additional assessments that were done, and we have to consider whether the student continues to meet the eligibility requirements to be considered a student with a disability under one of the 13 categories that Colleen mentioned. If a student does not meet the eligibility criteria, they would be considered declassified. But some students require transitional support, so they could be declassified with transitional services for up to 1 year. And that really just assists the student moving from special education to general education.
And so if I'm declassified, then I'm just thrown back up, then I start over at tier one?
So I would say looking at MTS and working with the team, then you would have to consider eligibility for MTSS services.
So we might look at the data and decide we still need some intervention because we don't wanna just be throwing in the deep end of the pool and go from there.
And although reevaluations happen every 3 years, they can happen at other times.
They could be recommended to happen earlier than 3 years.
Can Tim or any of you speak to the training that the teachers are given? Because I even know from experience how wonderful the teachers are in noticing what a child needs and how does that get communicated to all of you, and then, how are things made? So just curious about that, because.
This might be a Megan.
Yeah, communication processes are really important, so I think
Yeah.
2 pieces of that. One is the training of teachers and then the communication.
Yeah.
So Megan, if you wanna talk about teacher training, you can talk
Yes.
about STAR, you could talk about
Yeah.
curricular training, and then we'll have Colleen talk about the importance of communication between gen ed and special education.
Yeah, so
and how
just briefly, I'm
that's-
sorry
Yes.
to add that, yeah.
No, so I definitely think that's one of the strengths of our educators is the collaboration between both the classroom teachers and the specialists and the knowledge. And that knowledge comes from an investment in the professional learning for our teachers. So last year with us piloting STAR for the first time, a lot of our focus and energy was around understanding this data system and how does it serve me as a classroom teacher in understanding my students, and how does it serve me as an AIS service provider in understanding the students. We did that in a very collaborative way, which is the Byram Hill ways of working together, partnership with Kevin, around really understanding the nuances of the assessment, how we can utilize it as ourselves with our students. In addition to, it's really the content knowledge. So we partnered over the last 2 years with a researcher and consultant, really best understanding what are some of the nuances in the research around science of reading, the science of learning, and teachers really thinking through how they're building off the smart work they're already doing inside their classrooms in order to strengthen that practice. So that, I think, is a huge point of this, is that the professional learning is really valuable for the teacher.
Evident, really.
Yeah.
One thing I think is important to add there too is, as we've learned about the science of reading, I think you've heard Tim talk about, we've studied the concept of cognitive load across the district for quite a while as well too. We're applying that to our professional learning with teachers as well. And when you start talking about implementing a data system, we're thinking very carefully about where do we want the cognitive load of our professional staff to be. And by one of the values of, or the efficiencies that comes from putting all of our data under one single pane of glass is that it's one system to learn. And so and we can also tailor the amount of data. Like we live in a world today where there is data everywhere. We're thinking very carefully about what is the right data to look at and what users need which data when. And so we have schedules of when that stuff becomes available, and we're being very intentional about creating roles within our data system. So our teachers are presented in an easy way with the data that they need that's most impactful for the kids, so they can spend their cognitive load thinking about the research-based instructional strategies, not where do I click to get that piece of data. The same holds true for our administrators at the building and our district administrators as well. So we're being really intentional about how we're building out that system so we can focus people's efforts on where they can be most impactful.
I can say Megan has trained our teachers on using and interpreting the STAR data. Kevin has been instrumental in that as well. You'll recall that we're now piloting a new phonics curriculum called UFly, moving away from foundations. Megan has been instrumental in modeling that in the classroom, piloting it with teachers, and working on that implementation as well, K2. So there's a lot of strong curriculum work that's happening as a result. Making sure, again, that we have research-based instruction and curriculum happening in classrooms, a strong assessment system, and then coordinating a communication. So Colleen, can you talk about how we communicate around these types of, making sure kids are getting the right support and everyone's knowledgeable of the data and what the kids need?
So I think there's very heavy collaboration between the general education side and special education side. And from my lens, there's kind of 2 places of collaboration. One is around the curriculum, and there's time built in where teachers have prep time together, grade level team meetings to talk about curricular shifts, and time to really talk about what is the curriculum that every student is learning in this grade level. Because that's also very important for special educators to really deeply understand any shifts that are being made there so that they can then likewise shift their own instruction. But then there's the piece that I think, Lara, you were really asking about, which is how do we talk about students who are struggling as a team? Every building has different processes around pulling together in regular meetings on pulling together teams of teachers and psychologists and administrators to talk about students. And really teachers go to administrators, guidance counselors, school psychologists who can play a really critical role in this and bring together teams of people to talk about what is the best next step for this student. Is the step a referral? Is the step to go to the MTSS process? And then rooting those conversations in data. So I think that's where most of that collaboration happens, and then coming up with a plan and then revisiting those meetings to say, is our intervention working?
I think you can always have data. You can always have assessments, right? But to have the right assessments that give you the right data to make the right choices of how to best support the kids is how you've honed it.
Can I also ask a question as far as communication goes? Where does communication with the parents and the community kind of come in with that, as far as either kind of help with everything that you've studied and the whole new system, how you communicate that to the parents with each individual child? You know, has that helped you understand better ways to communicate with the parents? And also, could this possibly go out to the preschool community to kind of help support those kids coming up into our schools?
I think that's a great question. So we recently met with the Developmental Support Committee, which is the rebranded child. Yes, and we actually talked a lot about this because it's really important for all parents to understand these systems. I know that different principals' coffees have focused around this particular issue and really understanding MTSS and how it interplays with special education. And one of the things that the Developmental Support Committee is planning is some work around the preschool community. But I also
It included preschool parents too.
Yes,
excellent.
Yeah, and I also think that some of this is through individual conversations. I invite any parent to always feel free to call our office. But also a lot of times our school psychologists are having these conversations with parents of when a parent is concerned, what is their first step and what makes the most sense.
Thank you.
Megan, can you talk about our recent initiative with incoming kindergarten students in terms of communicating? We've worked with the school association to help them prepare their students for coming into kindergarten, and then what we're working on this fall for next year.
Yeah, so another really amazing organization that Byram Hills has is the KIDS, which stands for it's the PTA for preschool students. Right? Right, okay. And so meeting with them and just hearing feedback from them around bridging that communication from preschool to kindergarten, because this, for our families, is the first introduction into Byram Hills, and we want them to feel like they're set up for success, they're coming into a family, and they know exactly what should be expected for them and what they should expect from us. So working with that organization as well as our kindergarten team that is incredibly committed to really strengthening that relationship and partnership, because they want to be at the forefront of that as well in terms of that relationship. We've been forming documents around, call them little supports around getting ready for kindergarten, for our, we call them our Bobcat Cubs that are coming up to us, right? So like things that our families can work on. You're getting Bobcat ready, so what our Cubs can work on over the summer and get excited about school. It includes videos of our amazing teachers showing some of these things they can do, so that way our families start to even get connected to some of the friendly faces that they're gonna be greeted with. And then also just looking at our intake, right? Because again, that's the first introduction to Byram Hills. We want this to be a wonderful experience for our families, but also give our educators what they need to be set up to really start that first day with success in knowing their students and families.
Wonderful. You forget how little
Yeah.
they are, and they don't know things like how to put on their jackets. and
We
how
have
to
an
open their
amazing
lunch
video
business.
that will tell you how to put on your jacket and zip and unzip your backpack, but you're absolutely right, right? And for our little ones, they come from like these small environments to like a really big school and just feeling like they're set up to be success.
We give strategies to parents to
Yes.
help them in the
Yes.
summer. So was a fun pilot this summer, we're gonna expand on it next year as well.
Having spent a lot of time at Coleman Hill, I'm gonna offer a class on how to open your own little thing of apple slices. So that's really a challenge.
those Go-Gurts.
Dr. Lamia, we'll use you for that video. You'll do the video for how to open up the apple slices.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Pause this portion of our conversation unless you have other questions, because we have two other things that we wanna get to, and I just wanna make sure we have enough time.
Yes, of course.
You
And
okay
do
with
we
that?
want, can we dismiss this group if they're not?
Yes.
So
You
we-
have the authority to do
I
so.
will do that, so you can get
Board
home.
President.
I just wanna
So,
say
yeah,
that I
thank you so
appreciate
much,
this
all
so
of you.
much.
Yeah.
We did not have, years past.
Yeah.
An opportunity where a student could be assessed and then supported and then not floundering, right? Because we have so many touch points on each of these kids now that we just didn't have before. So we're able to be very fluid in how we are supporting them and to make adaptations and changes by constantly checking to see where they are.
Yeah.
We didn't do this
And if I can add.
prior to this
Yeah, what I can
group.
add to that is also making sure we're consistent across classrooms.
Yes, please.
So that it's not random based on whether you
Right.
get, Teacher Levy or Teacher Kaltenecker, that I do it one way, he does it another,
Yeah.
and maybe you get more support from Mr. Levy and not me.
Absolutely.
We don't want that to be the case. We're basing it on data so that it's equitable across all classrooms for all kids
great.
regardless.
Amazing. I have
Thank
to
you for
say
all of that.
really quickly that I had two children go through the district. One, didn't need support, one did, and it was identified by a teacher. And she got the support she needed, and now she's in college and knows how to, ask for the help she needs. So it really goes on, and they're set up here with such a great foundation, so thank you all so much. And really, the little ones, the ones that are out there, and advocating for themselves and feeling empowered and understanding what they need and what their deficits are. It's something that was identified by a teacher here and, with the support from all of you. So thank you so much, and thank you for all the work and the hard work that you do.
Megan will be back next
Thank you,
month with
Christine,
Peggy and
Colleen,
Dave
and
to
Megan.
talk about the K-5 curriculum.
Yes.
So a little more in depth about curriculum.
Good.
Thank you
Thank
so
you, guys.
much.
Thank
you.
Get home safe. You wanna stay? Okay, you just let us know, okay? 'Cause I know you have homework.
Keep eating chocolate, Dylan.
Thank you all, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan.
Yeah.
Keep driving. We can do it. Okay, so now we're gonna segue to, we'll stay at the table. We're joined by Dwayne Smith, our English chairperson and English teacher at the high school, so welcome. We're gonna talk about artificial intelligence, so a bit of a shift here in this. But I wanna give an overview of this. So we like to study things, so we started in November of 2022 when ChatGPT was first announced. I immediately signed up for a beta account, we got that beta account in December, and started using ChatGPT to determine Christmas gifts for my family. It was really pretty good, I'm like, this is not so bad, I keep this around. But immediately seeing, this is gonna have some impact on the school, new technology, right? So it reminded me of the graphing calculator when that was released, and I was a math teacher thinking, this is gonna be impactful. So we started studying it, so I put together some good thinkers that included Kevin, Dwayne. Dwayne brought in some of his English teachers. That was the first area we thought would be hit, was writing papers, students using AI to write papers. So we reached out to our BOCES, we asked them to start bringing together districts so we could start thinking. So we started watching webinars, reading articles, playing with AI tools ourselves so we can learn and think about the impact. So what you'll hear tonight is a little bit about our journey and what we're putting together. I'll direct our community to our website. You can use this QR code or go to our website and search AI toolkit. And you'll come up with a toolkit that we put together from our 2 years of studying this, which will be a work in progress because AI is changing so rapidly that we're finding that we need to update this constantly with some new information. So what we want to talk a little bit about tonight is how we're responding to AI, what our thinking is around it. You'll hear some examples, and again, it's a ongoing conversation as we continue to learn about this. So why don't I ask Kevin if you, well, let me talk this. This is sort of one foundation in our AI toolkit that we put together is thinking about these 4 areas. So we break it down into academic integrity as one area. That was a big concern of teachers at first. Kids are gonna use it to cheat. How are we gonna catch kids who are using ChatGPT or other AI tools to write papers? Critical evaluation, what we mean by that is how do we get people to think critically about the information that is produced by AI? Making sure we're not just accepting everything as fact, knowing how AI works and understanding that it could have incorrect information and why it does. Talking about the privacy and security aspect of information we put into AI, and then also holding us accountable for using it appropriately. So those are the 4 areas we sort of defined in our AI toolkit that we address in depth. So Kevin, if I can just have you give an overview first of, when we talk AI now today, what are we talking about and how is it different than maybe our perceptions of AI? What do we mean when we're talking about the AI use?
I think the best explanation of AI I've heard is from Justin Reich at MIT. And he says that AI is a catch-all term that's used to describe all the technology that we don't understand what it does. And over time, because of that, if you keep that framework in your head, over time, what constitutes AI will be changing. So a couple years ago, we started talking about AI, talking about large language models exclusively, where these are essentially prediction engines that go out and look at all of the human work that's available on the internet, in that case, not even available on the internet yet, grabs it, puts it on the internet, and then looks and see what's the probability that the next word that I generate might be A, B, or C, or X, Y, or Z. Of course, a lot of the narrative goes towards, or that's a narrow intelligence, and that will eventually go into a general intelligence, where the AI starts to mimic human behavior. Where we are right now with AI in schools is that we have large language models, but some of the things that Dwayne and many other teachers that we've been working with have been talking about creating small language models too. And that's a really exciting time for us in schools too, because it allows us to really be more deliberate and intentional and discerning about the data that we're using to allow the AI to generate text on. So there are tools that are out there now that allow our teachers to curate the materials that the AI looks at exclusively. So for example, in the past, where a student might go onto a ChatGPT or whatever your generative AI tool of choice is and type a prompt in there, it will go out to the internet and pull anything that may or may not be a hallucination, or it may be relevant to the answer, or it may not be. With some of the small language model tools that we have now, it allows us to curate a set of resources that the AI looks at, and therefore it has responses that are specific to those. And as these tools have developed within schools, there are certain techniques that they're using, or certain opportunities they're providing students to allow them to do things that are pedagogically helpful, such as creating flashcards off of a set of information, or creating a study guide off of a set of information, or providing specific feedback on an essay in a specific way. So that's a really powerful tool, and it's an exciting time, whereas some of the initial, I don't even want to use the word fear, but some of the initial questioning about what's the impact this is going to have, we still have those big questions about AI. We're always going to continue to study its impact on our educational environment, but we're also starting to get better tools that we know that we can use in really productive ways to help augment what we're doing on there.
Speaking of small language models, I happened to walk in on Dwayne today, just walked into his office and he was with another chairperson, teaching her how to use a particular small language model. Do you wanna, I'm jumping way ahead of where you are, but I go out of order sometimes. So can you talk about what you were doing? I was intrigued and I'm gonna go home and play with this now.
Sure. I mean, I think Kevin's absolutely right. The small language model, to me, is a spot that we don't know the sweet spot yet, but I really think it's going to help students in the classroom. So Dr. Layden came into my office today and asked me to show her this particular small language model. And it's sort of what Kevin suggests. It's a curation of information, but I get to select the information that goes into it. There was one that was put together ahead of time that had every single Shakespearean play, the text of every single Shakespearean play uploaded already into the small language model. And what you can then do is query the model itself and ask a ton of different questions. And so I was trying to show Dr. Layden how this worked, and I said, well, I'm interested in writing a paper about a minor character in a Shakespeare play that deals with the theme of obfuscation. And so,
Why not?
Just 'cause.
You couldn't have
And-
picked a bigger word.
it just happened to come to mind, right? So, of course, I get a list of all the different minor characters that were thieves and liars, and it not only did that, but it also gave textual evidence to support it from the plays. These are some of the lines said about the character, by the character. I mean, this is a fascinating approach. Now, the question, of course, comes up with these small language models. You can devise a lesson in some of the same ways that we've done this before. You've probably heard teachers talk about text sets, right? I'm going to bring in 5 or 6 different articles about the Harlem Renaissance. I want my students to learn about the Harlem Renaissance. Well, everything that the small language model is doing now is going only to those 5 articles and pulling information from those articles. So it can develop a study guide. It can quiz the students on the information to see if they actually have learned the information. It can interact in the way that I was, where it just takes questions about the material and answers those questions for the student. It's a really interactive tool that I think has a lot of, at least for me, an upside that I don't even know where it will end up. But right now, I'm fascinated by it.
Is that within the classroom? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm curious
So-
if that's only within the classroom, or how do you deal with that outside of the
It
classroom?
can be done outside of the classroom.
So you could sort of send it home with kids?
You could send it home. I could post it right onto Google Classroom, for instance, and a student could go home and have that tool. I also can set parameters. So I can give the students full access to the entire battery of sources, or I can open them up just to a chat window. And so, for instance, if I had that example of Harlem Renaissance information, I want you to go home and I want you to ask a ton of questions of this small language model about the Harlem Renaissance, so you can start to understand it. And students could begin with something simple. When did it take place? It'll give you the information. Who were some of the principal artists that were part of the Harlem Renaissance? It might give you some of that information.
It's like taking Dwayne home.
So there you go.
Would you see their questions? Like, would you as the teacher see their?
So that's
their
a
activity?
good question. I know we've used a particular small language model that does allow us to see the entire transcript of what a student is asking. And if any of you were part of the workshops that I've run in the past, I feel like I've talked about AI a lot. One of the ones that I shared with anyone who came to the principal's coffees or whatnot was a conference model. So some of these small language models allow you to develop these prompts that are going to really designate exactly how it operates. And I've done conferences where the students have had reading conferences, for instance, with an AI bot, where the AI bot will ask them, what book are you currently reading? And then it will, because I've prompted it to do that, it will then follow up with, well, here's what the book is about. Is that the correct title? Just to make sure.
I think we saw a sample
Yep,
of that.
you probably saw that
Yeah, that was
before.
amazing.
And
Yeah.
that is one, Melissa, where you can see the entire transcript of what a student's interaction is.
'Cause then you could sort of see the progression of the student's understanding or
Exactly.
misunderstanding,
Exactly.
which I find so
Yeah,
interesting.
we started the first half of this, we started talking about data. That's enormously valuable data to a teacher to be able to see on an individual basis how our students engaging and also on a class basis. And then over time, because we subscribe to it, it also gives you a longitudinal view.
Fascinating.
Wait, I guess
Thank
just
you.
thinking about AI in English, just like a great example, because it really gets to the heart of what an
Yes.
English student does. Given that it can summarize books and write fairly good papers. If you think about the tools that we use as we kind of progress maybe through school or beyond, spell check, okay, fine, so you learn ultimately how to spell by just looking at a lot of words, so maybe if you didn't learn how to spell because of spell check, you're gonna be okay. Grammar check, same sort of thing. But now these tools can synthesize, they can organize, they can actually even generate ideas. Are there higher order things that we can teach kids where they can rely on AI to do all of that, because they're probably gonna do that in their careers anyway? But like, what's the higher order
Thinking.
fundamental thinking that you could do in a classroom, even using AI to cheat for everything, just like you have ChatGPT, go home, write your paper, you have full access to it. What do we teach them? That's kind of what I'm struggling with as I think about even at the college level, like what.
Fundamentally,
Yeah.
I mean, listen, there are all sorts of stories that I hear from colleagues, whether they're here at Byram Hills or across Westchester and elsewhere, about the way AI functions. I've had some teachers come to me and say, well, what I like to do is have AI spit out a paper, and then I like to have the students evaluate that paper. So let's take some critical thinking to it. And then you have somebody who says, oh yeah, well, I just took the paper that was spit out by AI, put it back into AI, and asked AI to evaluate itself. Well, okay, you're jumping through some hoops here, right? So, I mean, I think part of what we can't get rid of is the value of critical thinking in the classroom. We can't get rid of the steps that are part of the writing process. So if you study to become an English teacher at any point, you've heard about this process. To me, when I was writing papers as a college student, even way back in high school, my favorite part, and I always talk to my students about this, was when I would begin the process, because I had no idea what I was gonna write about. Usually what it was a number of Post-it notes with quotations that were slapped up on the dorm room wall, and it was me looking at those quotes and sort of thinking, okay, what do I know now? And I started to group them and I started to organize them to try and figure out what I could actually prove, right? And that process is so integral to what the English teachers at the high school are doing. They are still doing a lot of writing in the classroom. I would imagine.
On the screen is
Yep,
an
absolutely.
actual classroom this fall. Miss Solomon's classroom, I walked in, kids writing in the classroom.
Yeah.
And some of it you'll even find if you do your visits this year is pen to paper. Which we know from research, there is a different level of critical thinking that happens when you put pen to paper. And that's something where, you know, you don't have the constant bombardment of the spell check showing up, some of the other things. But I think, you know, your question's a great one. I think we need to continue to push students to think critically. We do that in so many ways in the classroom, whether it's through discussions that are rich, that are text-based discussions, whether it's going back into the written work, having students reflect on their own work. We've done this for years. It's been part of our practice. I don't think the AI changes that so much. And I don't think you're gonna find too many teachers just saying, I want you to go home from the inception of this paper and just do the entire thing at home anymore. I think there's going to be a blend of guided practice in the classroom, conferencing with teachers, where they're really trying to help students come to some original ideas. You know, AI has some wonderful things that I know, a lot of the adults that I know use it in so many different ways now. And it can do some great things, but it can't replace that need for critical thinking and that.
It's also much more
That's
powerful
huge.
when you know how to write already.
Exactly.
If you don't know how to write and use
Right,
it, then it becomes an incredibly,
I mean,
it's
prompt
a lot
engineering.
easier over time.
Yeah, prompt engineering is huge right now because you need to know how to write to actually write the prompts.
Right.
So you do have to teach them how to think,
Mhm.
right? That
And how to-
thinking skill and then explaining what you've learned.
Yes.
Those are the two, I think, critical pieces that will come out of that.
Well, Scott, you started your question by saying, you used the word synthesize in your question, right? And if you think back, like Bloom's taxonomy that all teachers learn, synthesis is high on the pyramid of learning. What's underneath that is all those prerequisite skills. And every class, every discipline has a different set of prerequisite skills that are needed before you get to the synthesis part. Lisa will talk in a little bit about how math is progressive and how it does that. I actually love thinking about math similar to English and that it is a language. What I love about the way that we're approaching AI here is that we've provided those frameworks, and Dwayne spearheaded a lot of this work to provide the framework to allow teachers to really be intentional about, here's the time for us to develop this critical skill. And so the AI is not appropriate here. Sometimes the right technology, I say this as a technology director, sometimes the right technology is a piece of paper and a pencil. And our teachers know that the best, and we've given the opportunity for them to do that. And then other times, in order to really be prepared for a world that exists with AI, you have to be able to say, now's the time to use that AI to do that. And that's how we've tried to structure our approach here, to give folks the understanding of how it works, the implications it has to learning, and then the agency to implement appropriately in the classroom.
It's not going to be that. So we have to, like, it's a skill. It's a skill that the kids have to learn because it's being used in corporate. I mean, we use it every day, all day, to analyze reports, to write business emails, to, I use it for everything, all day long, to do research. And it's an important skill that they learn how to integrate into their life.
Buying Christmas gifts.
And
It's integrated into our phones now.
It is.
So
Yes.
easy to
Yes,
use it.
to that point, reading is the fundamental to everything. It's the fundamental to math, it's the fundamental to science, it's the fundamental to English, history. Like, if you can't read and you can't write, the rest of it's not gonna make a difference. Even if AI writes for you your whole life, you're not gonna understand what you're doing. So I guess
It's
my
here to stay.
concern is, are we giving the tools to the K through 8 or 9 before they really have access to like their own computers and phones? Are we giving them enough of the foundation to build on?
And just adding to that question, I think that there's no, even for adults, even for me, it's harder to read a book now than it was like 30 years ago. Like nothing, right? It's true for all of us because of the phones. But for students now, I think it's incredibly difficult to read books. And when you think about the nuance that could be delivered in a book compared to a 750-word editorial or compared to some tweet, I mean, it's like, it's night and day. So if we end up with a society where everything is done via short form, it's actually very scary because you just cannot get your point across the same way you can in a 300-page book. I was thinking the exact same kind of question, like how do you instill that value of reading in the world where AI is?
Audiobooks. I can even take out AI, there's just audiobooks, they don't have to read anymore.
Well, I mean, listen, that is the biggest challenge we have, and it continues to be, is how do you enforce, sort of that love of reading, and how do you bring that into the child's life? And it starts obviously at the house, at home. It starts with modeling, parents and guardians, taking time away to sit down and read together as a family when they're young. But it continues. Life gets busy. I mean, we all know that most of the pleasure reading drops off for students once they hit middle school. And it's no surprise. They start to get busy. Sports come into play. You have students like Dylan who are, playing multiple sports and probably not getting home until, I don't know what hour of the night you're getting home. And 9:30 at night is not the time to pick up a book and really, read. At that point, you're probably falling asleep while you read, But it's a huge piece of this. I mean, we still focus on independent reading at the middle school and the high school and trying to encourage students to do that. That takes patience, right? It takes a lot of patience because everything, as you're mentioning, Scott, in today's world is quick, right? The tweets that we have, the TikTok videos, everything is coming at us. I was reading this book called Reader Come Home that we read as a collective from the English department or English chairs in the area last year. And there was an entire chapter that was dedicated to just that. The idea that the author, who used to have the stamina to read really long novels and go back to those novels year after year, was finding herself distracted while she was reading and finding her mind going elsewhere, and we all suffer from that right now, mostly because of the preponderance of social media and phones and the ease that we have of getting information in a split second.
I know you're at the secondary level, but have you seen at all any of the pendulum swing the other way? Because I know that online, at least, ironically, and also from what I happen to hear from people with some younger kids, apparently kids aren't necessarily getting phones as young as they were, and somebody was saying that there are a lot of sixth graders who don't have phones now. So I don't know if you've seen it at all in high school, but do you think that there's a possibility that maybe people are pulling back and we can sort of get back to the basics and the reading and the writing?
Absolutely. I mean, it's early to tell, but I will say that, the cell phone and internet-enabled device ban that's happened this year presents us with a wonderful opportunity.
Sure does.
I said to my ninth graders that, it used to be where I would tell them, once a cycle, I want you to bring your independent reading book in, we'll devote some time in class so you have time to read, so that I have time to conference with you about the books that you're reading. This year I said, I want you to have that with you every single day.
Wow.
Because at some point, a class is gonna end with 5 minutes to spare, some students are gonna be finishing up a project, and you're gonna have 5 minutes to crack open that book. Whereas last year, that would have been 5 minutes where the phone would have come out, and that would have been a totally different, use of time.
It's fascinating.
So I'm hoping, I mean, it's hard to tell that if it's changing right now, but I'm hoping that instinct to grab a book instead of the phone is gonna be something that can carry over for some students.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good point.
I'd just like to say, I actually think it has kind of been like that I could really only speak from personal experience. I feel like my freshman and sophomore year, I wouldn't necessarily read that much outside of school. But like my junior or senior year, I have honestly tried to put my phone down a little bit more and start reading. And
So you have the awareness, you feel like now.
and I've started enjoying books.
That's awesome to hear.
It is admittedly a struggle though sometimes, like my attention span. I just recently got this book And I'm only like one chapter into it. I got it like 2 weeks ago just because, I mean, time is a thing, but it's also like, a lot of times I'll be reading and I'll just be thinking about something else and I'll have to flip that.
Yeah, adults have that too.
Well, you were witness to me telling Mr. Smith about this great book that I'm reading, and I went into great detail about the book that I'm reading, and I said to him, I have no idea what the title is. I've been reading this book, it's fascinating, I was trying to like jog his memory, like, have you heard of this, what is the title? But it's true, you know, even books that you're immersed in like I am, and it's an actual book, it's not even an ebook.
Just as, and thanks Dylan for giving us your perspective. Student perspective is really important, and as part of developing our toolkit, Kevin and I conducted focus groups with students last year. Kevin, you want to speak a little bit about what we learned from it? I highlighted it on some slides here, but these were the general categories that I put it in when students were giving us some feedback. To me, it was really powerful to hear what students were saying. The message I got from it was they wanted help on how to use AI from their teachers. They wanted guidance because kids feel like they don't know if they're using it is allowed or not, and they want to do the right thing. We have kids who want to do the right thing. So they were asking us for guidance. That was sort of one of my big takeaways from the student focus groups was teachers need to give us guidance on the parameters. So do you want to speak to any highlights from?
That's the thing that stood out most to me. I mean, you can see examples on the screen of how students are using AI. That's certainly powerful, but more powerful than that was there was in every group that we met with, there was such a strong, palpable sense of like just the desire to make sense of what the world looks like and what they need to know and what they don't need to know about using AI. And we're all in the same place together. We all are learning about how to live in a world with AI and how best to use it together. So that is an amazing opportunity to do what Byram Hills has always done, which is to learn alongside our kids and to be vulnerable with them too about what we're doing well and what we're questioning. I mean, I always love every opportunity we get to sit down with our kids. It was just amazing.
It's hard too, because I think in colleges it's different. Every teacher, every professor is gonna view this very differently, and the kids have to understand that they've got to talk to their professors to understand what each professor is going to,
What their expectations are.
what they're gonna allow and
Yeah.
what they're comfortable with. Because some will say it's cheating and some are totally fine with it.
So I'm glad you brought that up because I'm actually meeting with a group of teacher facilitators for some professional learning on Monday afternoon. And one of the topics we'll be discussing is how do we make connections with professors and industry professionals to get a really strong understanding as to exactly how they're wrestling with these questions. What are the skills that they're looking for kids to have in industry, that sort of thing. We're looking to create those sorts of feedback loops as well, because as much as I say we're working on this and learning alongside our kids, the whole world is learning how to exist with AI too. So every opportunity we have, we're reaching out. Yeah.
And not always, but typically at the college level, it's in the syllabus. So actually, if you look at some syllabi are online, not all, but you can actually look at it, go into a school, go to the English department, and a course that you're interested in, and the syllabus will literally dictate.
They'll tell you.
Yeah, these are the parameters, and you're right, every single
You can't
professor
bring
treats
computers
it
to some
differently.
classes.
And that's
Some are no computers whatsoever.
And some will allow you to record it.
Right.
And
A lot will.
auto take, AI can take notes for you.
Yeah, actually, got that.
Depends on the teacher.
Has that
Yeah.
software.
So we're taking that approach. We're asking, last year I asked every chairperson to work with their departments to develop guidance. Dwayne was sort of our pioneer since he was working with us in this study group and did that first with his English department. Now all the chairs, Lisa's doing it, all the academic chairs are creating expectations of AI use in their departments. So we figured that it would probably be different across departments in terms of how it's going to be used. And letting departments set their parameters, and then all teachers would make sure they're communicating the expectation to kids. Similarly to colleges, put that in your opening day syllabus that you give to the students in your class, so that students know what the expectations are. We don't want students thinking, am I doing the right thing or not doing it? Let's make it clear. So Dwayne, do you want to just talk a little bit to this, and then we'll wrap up this segment?
Sure. Yeah, I think one thing I want you to know is the document that Tim put on the screen here, it's a living document. I actually sent an email to my teachers today asking them to revisit this document and start to think about what additions we need to make. Part of that is because AI is changing so rapidly, what it can do changes. This came together through a lot of thoughtful conversation. I think it was roughly 6 of my department members with me, with Kevin as well, and with Tim, to a workshop that was a year-long workshop sponsored by Putnam Northwestern BOCES and Northern Westchester BOCES, and they basically got us together and had a lot of initial conversations. And I will say that many of the teachers had the same trepidations that some of you have shared. Many of them did not have the same wealth of understanding of even how AI worked or what it could actually do. So part of the work was, for me, going into my classroom and almost beta testing some of the AI that we were using. Being able to come back with some data from what my students used it for, sharing it with my teachers. That was just a luxury I had because I'm able to do that work in the classroom, which is great. I had a lot of different conversations with teachers, and it was basically about these 3 different categories. What are some things that we think are acceptable? And a lot of the AI acceptable use column is really things that you can already do with Google. I can Google what a word means. I can go in and define that complex vocabulary. I can even probably find study guides online using Google. Maybe some audio visual aids, I can find some pictures and things like that to go with something that I'm studying. So we kind of looked at that as a category that we're already doing that. We've already said that, Google's there and students use it all the time. So anything that AI is doing that's in that realm, we started to put in that left-hand column, that green light column. We also created an area that really required permission, and some of that, sort of what Mia was talking about, how each college professor might have different parameters and expectations. I wanted the teachers in the department also to know that they did have some ability to say, no, I'm not going to let you go and summarize the classroom text because I'm working on the skill of summarizing with you. I want you to be able to figure out how to take a paragraph and bring it down to a sentence or 2. And so in this particular instance, I don't want you to use the AI for that. So my teachers needed that license. And that was probably the most interesting part of our conversations, what fell into that gray area. The right-hand column for us was pretty much straightforward. We have always been supporting academic integrity. We want students to continue to learn how to have integrity by citing when they do use AI. By asking us for permission if they need to, and by being open and transparent about it to use. That's important to us, and I know that at the college level, that's going to be increasingly important for students as well. I know a number of college professors that on their syllabi say, yes, use AI, but cite it. Tell us how you used it.
Is more writing taking place in the classroom now for this purpose, because of this?
That started over
Probably the last year and a half.
Yeah, you started doing that right away when AI first was launched, when ChatGPT was first launched. Dwayne immediately started shifting his department toward that. We could go on for another hour.
I know.
There's a lot to talk about, and it's exciting.
I know, this is very exciting.
But I wanna just, unless you have other questions around AI.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for all your work, it's really fascinating.
Dwayne and Kevin, thank you.
Yes, thank you
Gives
both.
to heart out, we'll just do that instead of trying to bring it together, but thank you, thanks
Thank
for
you.
your time, this is great, we can continue. And if you're interested, we can bring them back and we can continue the conversation at a later time.
We'll have a second retreat, we'll have an AI retreat.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Dwayne and Kevin are both like leaders in this work in the area, also presenting to a lot of different people at conferences, superintendent groups, so we appreciate you doing that.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you both.
Thank you.
Please go home.
Have a good night.
Thank you very much.
Good night, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Sorry.
Still good, Dylan? Dylan, you've got good staying power.
Yeah, you're good.
He has good contributions.
Yeah, it's not fun saying it.
It's not. It's not. So true.
Because it like,
It's
it
just
feels
not,
like,
like,
I'm not actually like.
I messed up for a joke, I just think.
I'm just kinda like.
Thank you, thanks guys.
Thank you.
So probably.
Hour number 3, let's go. Thank you so much for being here.
We saved the
It's a
best
lot.
for last.
That's what I was gonna say, but she's like, but where is that? Thank you.
So Lisa's here for an
Welcome, Lisa.
update.
Hey guys.
Lisa was here, I think we decided 15 months ago.
We landed on 15 months, we did.
Remember from between our two memories. And Lisa gave us a state of the department. She talked about some issues around the instructional research, the research-based instruction that they were doing in the classroom, and those practices that they were studying. She was talking about her curriculum alignment, and then also talking about longitudinal data she shared with us on the accelerated pathways. So I've asked Lisa to give us an update on those areas. And we'll start with sort of the curriculum alignment piece that has come up. Megan and I have worked a lot with that alignment. You've heard us talk about the importance of curricular alignment for MTSS purposes, K-5. Imagine, K-5, we have somewhere between 8 and 10 classrooms per grade level. We want to ensure that we're using the same curriculum, that we're using similar instructional methods, and that we're using common assessments so that we're speaking the same language. That's critical at that age level. But also as we go up through all the grades, when we have multiple courses taught by different teachers, how do we ensure that students are exposed to the same content, the best instructional practices, and then how do assessments play into that? Can you talk about the work you've been doing to ensure that students, regardless of which teacher, whether they have Mr. Kelly or me, that they have the same high quality curricular exposure and instructional strategies?
Sure.
And welcome, Lisa, thank you for being here.
So thanks to everyone here. I'm gonna go in a little bit different direction actually than we talked about at dinner, because I came up with something as I was sitting here. Hopefully you like it. I was thinking about our department meeting 6/12 in the summer, and then the department meeting we have tomorrow, right? Because I think those are two areas you rarely get to see. So I thought I might just kind of walk you through some of the things we talked about in the summer, and some things we'll talk about tomorrow, and you can kind of get an idea of how we spend our time together.
And Lisa, let me just remind our community who's listening who might not understand that, Lisa and all of our chair people supervise 6th through 12th grade. So sometimes she'll meet with just her middle school department, sometimes high school, but frequently she'll meet with both middle and high school together so we can have those vertical alignment as well as horizontal alignment with our curriculum. Both of those are really critical to the success of our students.
Yes, thank you. So over this summer when we met as a 6/12 group, in addition to going through our goals and talking about what we're looking to accomplish for the year, our lens, we kind of have a different lens every year. This year's lens is cohesion, right? So making sure that we are cohesive at a grade level, at a course level, and then also across grades 6 through 12. So the lens with which we looked at that over the summer meeting was Japanese note-taking. So actually, Japanese schools are very well known for planning not only mathematical lessons, but mathematical board work. And that is part of an integral part of their daily plan. So how they present the information, the types of work examples that they show, the types of student misconceptions they anticipate will happen that actually show up happening. And so we use that as a lens to talk through the mathematics 6 through 12. So that's an example where we're looking at something vertically, but with a lens that would apply to everyone there. And so everyone can kind of take part in that rich discussion. Now you juxtapose that with a high school meeting. So tomorrow, we will be meeting 9 through 12. I'm actually going to try a new protocol that I learned at the BOCES chairs meeting recently, to get at maybe some misconceptions with students that we would want to identify and work on, but in a way that's non-threatening, right? So sometimes if students, or if you say like, oh, students don't know X, Y, Z, another teacher might say, oh, well, I was supposed to teach that, maybe I didn't do a good job. And so someone else in another school had an idea where they did in their department meetings, everyone went around and just said 1 or 2 words in terms of a topic that they felt students or wished students knew more about coming into their class. And there was no judgment. It was not like who teaches this topic or where, it was just kind of a go around very quick and then they moved on. So that's a way for everyone to kind of hear from other folks within the department in terms of skills or topics that, well, maybe I teach that in my course and maybe I'll just kind of reflect on that and think a little bit more about it. After that, we're going to hear from one of our teachers who did some work at BOCES with a Penn State professor on spaced retention strategies. So research-based strategies, how often should you repeat information, specifically student misconceptions, to make sure that those misconceptions do not endure. And so actually it ended up being, I think, about 40 days from the onset, the very first time that you teach it. You should come back to it in a very purposeful, not, kind of a thought process, but really just a direct instruction, like, this was the misconception, let's revisit it, and then we move on. So that'll be the next part. And then the last part of our meeting will be in pathway groups. So everyone that is in, let's say, the advanced pathway will be sitting together. People in courses, common courses, will sit together, and then we'll talk about where we are in a timeline with the curriculum. Where do we expect to be? What adjustments, do we need to make? So those are ways from a pacing and from a content perspective that we make sure that we are where we are. Now you go to the assessment side. So for assessments, one of the most kind of easy to explain things would be like a final exam. So for courses that have a common final assessment, we look at that to make sure, obviously, that students are getting similar experiences. But beyond that, what we've started to do is incorporate more routine common assessments. So teachers always plan assessments together, but when I say common, I mean common like the exact same assessment on a particular day. And so teachers have incorporated these, what we call them, quarterly assessments, so that they can also make sure that they are aligned. And that's also in addition to kind of the day-to-day chit chat that goes on in the math department, which I won't bore you with our math geekdom.
So you have some structured opportunities where you're bringing teachers together to talk about common practices, both instructional practices I heard you talk about, and about content by that go-around, and then also the assessments, making sure that courses have teachers across the same course have the same assessments. So there is that expectation, that's communicated to teachers, right?
Absolutely, yep. And we have a very purposeful communication of it this year in our goals.
Is it communicated to the students?
That's a good question. I think it's communicated when we talk about course policies. How explicitly do we communicate having the same experience across different periods? That's a good question.
I just think that, this is not unique to the math department, but I think the feedback we all hear from our kids and from, other parents and other kids is from across departments is that they feel like there's a lot of, there's a big discrepancy depending on who you get as a teacher, how the courses are assessed. One teacher may give one test a quarter, one's giving one a week. So I think giving that information to the students would be very helpful.
No, that's a great idea, just being more purposeful with how we share that information, like, hey, look, we're doing this, the other class is also doing this, they're having a similar assessment on a similar day, that way they know that we're.
Student who says, oh my gosh, we have so many more tests in this class than you have in yours. Well, yours doesn't go until Tuesday because of the way the periods fall, right?
Yeah.
So it's not true, maybe, and maybe somebody needs to create that narrative.
Right.
And it is an expectation I'm communicating with chairs, that we tighten that up at the secondary level. Megan and I have been working hard at that at the elementary
I think it really
level.
happens at elementary.
Yeah, so that's something we've made sure we have to be giving common curriculum, common assessments, common instructional strategies that we know work. And we're talking about that here. So here's a question for you, which I know is a challenge because I, as the math department chair before you, was also trying to think about approaches to this. How do I know? How am I, confident that, the content is the same and that teachers are utilizing the instructional practices? I mean, how are you monitoring this? What's the accountability process?
Sure, so I look at a lot of different things. I pop into classes as often as I can, especially if I know two periods are concurrent or are doing the same lesson. I'll pop into one and pop into the other. Middle school is so, you could kind of just,
hear them.
right, you can hear them and one person is finishing another sentence. It's really together. As you get further up in the mathematics kind of journey, you might see a little bit more of a difference. So I just try to pop in if I know there's a particular lesson and two different teachers are teaching it, just to see, right, stylistically, or just to see what the student experience is. From a data perspective, I am always kind of just looking through the portal, just to see what's there, making sure that assessments are put in, and making sure that if there's any sort of discrepancies, I'm aware of them, and reaching out if need be for that. If we have common assessments, like I said, the final or quarterlies, taking a look at those, sitting down with the teachers, and then also just providing that time for them, right? Even though we all are kind of together very much in the office, chit-chatting all the time, I think it's still nice to have that structured time built in to things like department meetings for them to have that debrief time from particular assessments.
When your
I have
teachers,
to, oh, sorry.
I have to jump in when you're saying chit-chatting. I've experienced the chit-chatting.
Sorry.
It's not chit-chatting. Just to clarify, it's like
Yes.
a lot of math talk that's happening. It isn't
Sorry, when
like
I
a-
say chit-chat, I mean like geek talk is our version of chit-chat.
It's not what you do last weekend.
No.
Circling back on a topic.
Yes.
Is there a standard, because I've seen many different ways, it's either not circled back at, or it's circled back at and it's on an assessment, or it's circled back on and it's like at a place, like how, is this a new focus of yours to make sure when it's circled back, it actually shows up to be reassessed?
So I think now we have some research-based strategies that are specifically focused on that spaced repetition. And that was something that I was interested in to begin with, just as someone that had been learning another language and knew the importance of spaced repetition from that standpoint. And I kind of slowly put that out there for the department, and they're like, oh yeah, that could apply to math too. And so now that's kind of a bigger focus for us this year, is looking again scientifically at it, like what does the data say in terms of when you should loop back with that information and being purposeful with it.
Spacing means if I learn how to factor a polynomial, I should come back to it a couple days later, then
Right.
then 5 days later, and this.
No, but then if it shows up 40 days later, there are certain teachers who have standard-based grading, which is fabulous. So if you didn't get it in September, but you have
You
it
still do, yeah.
in November, you get the credit that you should have gotten back in September. Other teachers aren't, so is there gonna be more standardization in that
So you were
sense?
talking
Because
about the assessment piece and
the assessment,
grading and
right,
grading opportunities.
and making
Right.
sure that it's equitable across every teacher, because one teacher does it and one doesn't, so it's just easier if everybody knows.
Is that
Absolutely.
one does, one doesn't within the same course?
Never within the same course. So we do have a teacher this year that is piloting standards-based grading in a new course, but it's a course that only they teach. So they have both sections. That way we make sure, again, from a grading perspective, like the student experience is similar across,
I'm taking the course.
like everyone taking that particular course. But we'll still have those conversations between teachers of the same course of like, okay, well, let's go back to like that particular topic and what can we do to, you know, to bring that back and to emphasize that growth. I can strongly say every teacher looks at growth within a quarter and within the year. I think from a mathematics perspective, it's critical for us because as you know, mathematics is so foundational. It's layer upon layer upon layer, that every single skill that you learn gets used in another skill.
One question for you about, just, I guess 15 months ago when you came, you talked a lot about the change in the pathways.
Correct.
And some of the data. Now it's 15 months more time that's elapsed, and as you have meetings with the department and you talk about like the different, any different, there you go. Any different observations in terms of, are things working? Are there areas for improvement? I mean, every system has pros and cons, and there's always unintended consequences, so.
I'll tell you, I think the biggest, and I can say this now as someone that has, 3 children, one that has been through 6th grade, and I know his maturity in 6th grade. Looking back and thinking, gosh, like 6th grade was at one point the only time that we offered acceleration mathematically. That can be difficult, if a student hasn't matured at that point, doesn't mean that they couldn't be successful later on. It just, that's a huge developmental time. So I think what we are definitely seeing is delaying that start for acceleration, giving that additional time, and also then the additional opportunity later on is allowing more students to find that success, and to make decisions that are educated for them, right? When they get to high school, there's a lot of opportunities they might wanna take advantage of. And everything kind of pulls at their time, whereas middle school, if you're saying, okay, well, we have mathematics advancement, that's kind of the, one of the only focuses academically, you're saying, well, I've got to take advantage of that, right? Whereas in high school, you have all these other things competing for your time. So I think students and families are able to make more educated and informed decisions. I have seen, in terms of a percent, like this year, we have a healthy, largest size BC Calc class I think we've had in some time. So if you look at the data for this year's seniors, from the Algebra 1A back in 8th grade, roughly half of them went on to take BC Calculus. So Tim and I, in talking about that, said that's kind of like a comfortable number for us, right? Because if it's 100%, then you would ask yourself the question, did we accelerate enough students, right? Because if all of them are going through, like we kind of know there's going to be a natural attrition again, there's going to be other things pulling at a student's time. So that gives us comfort that we have identified enough students in, 7th into 8th grade and that start of 8th grade for that first kind of tranche of acceleration. Then you have the next chunk of those students going on to take AB calculus, and then you have roughly 12% that are going on to take calculus. They're all continuing on in that pathway though.
Or we used to see a lot.
Like we used to see a huge drop off, especially going into senior year. We had 5 to 6% each year students not taking math at all.
Have we looked at the master schedule since its implementation, what impact it's had on the math program? Because it's just something you said earlier resonated, that if you, because the way the classes are now, like one class could be ahead, if you miss one section, you're kind of screwed.
Look, for math, it takes a lot of planning.
Yeah.
It does. You're absolutely right. You have to be really thoughtful, and sometimes you have to make minor adjustments to the pacing just based off of you might have done one topic first, but the way the schedule falls and there's a break coming up, it doesn't make sense because you don't want to split it between, let's say the December break. So you make adjustments for that. You do have to be a little bit more future forecasting to try to make sure that you're accommodating for everything, right? I think every math teacher would like to end the year with a little bit of time left over for pull together. We never want to be kind of racing till the last minute. I can say for BC Calc, I certainly don't want to be racing till the last minute. So I do try to leave that room in as well. And then every year, students come in with different strengths. And so the pacing gets adjusted for that, right? Because you might have one year, one group of students comes in really, really strong on one topic, and you save time on that, and then you might need to gain time on another, but absolutely at the heart of it, absolutely.
Yeah.
And just two more quick questions that I just got recently in the community.
Absolutely.
Math related. One is that for those that take BC, they were telling me that a lot of schools, and I don't know how many, but give AB junior year, so they're actually taking both AB and then BC. And I guess your view on just the advantages and disadvantages of that, and then the maybe related question is, with BC, I guess there are also some schools, particularly private and some public, and certainly the magnet schools that do multivariable calculus and or linear algebra.
Sure.
And so there's the two, those two questions about.
We just asked, I had asked, we talked about.
No worries. I can answer all parts of it.
I'm sure you thought about it.
Absolutely.
Her also asked those
yeah.
questions, right?
Perfect.
No, I'm saying,
Yes, don't worry.
Yeah.
In terms of I'll start with the first question about AB junior year. A couple of years back, I actually renamed the junior year advanced course. It used to be called Advanced Pre-Calculus. So actually it was Pre-Calc A was the name of it, and I changed it to Advanced Pre-Calculus / Calculus, because that course is not pre-calculus. It is higher in rigor, in my opinion, than an AB course.
Some of the students felt that is even harder sometimes in some ways than AB.
It is.
Yeah.
It is harder.
So you're doing AB topics in
You're
calculus
doing
topics
AB
in-
topics in that course. You are also doing some BC topics in that course that they will spiral back to the next year. And some of that also came out of conversations a couple of years back with some engineering professors. There are certain topics that are just really difficult for students for it to be a one and done.
Right.
And so you need to see them multiple times in order to really get them.
Such as, can you?
Series and sequences.
Just testing your math ability.
You're gonna know the difference.
So series and sequences, infinite series, they'll learn, so for example, they'll learn 5 tests for that in junior year. We'll circle back with those 5 tests again and add 3 or 4 more tests to that. In addition to coupling it with some other approximation methods that utilize series. It's tough, it's a tough topic. It's just tough, so I think you need to see it more than once, and when I told the college professors that was our kind of thing, they were like, that's amazing. As I walked past their office and I saw a problem written on a whiteboard, and I said, oh, I just gave that exact problem to my students. So I do believe our course is more rigorous than AB, and that's why I did change the naming of it, because I wanted to give, justice to what the students were doing in that particular class. In terms of multi, out of all of the math I took, multi, is my favorite, for sure. It's not easy. It requires not just like a mathematical maturity, but just a general maturity in that it is very visual. And so it can be quite difficult for students, especially if you are not already predisposed to being visual. And I think that tends to be, I'll speak from experience for BC, that tends to be where students will struggle in BC, because it's not a straightforward algebraic approach to it. You have to see it. And you have to just be able to see it and say, this is what's happening, this is what's happening, this is what's happening. So it's rare to have a student that would be ready for that level by the time they're senior. The couple of districts that we've found in the area that are doing it, I think there's only one, and they're doing it through an online course if a student elects to take that. How they're doing multi through online, I think that would also be difficult, again, just from the visual aspect of it, but it's challenging. Now, with that said, and I know I've had some folks who have children in my classroom, I do bring elements of that class into BC. So the students will, for students that are ready for that, they'll get exposed to it.
Makes sense.
Does it hurt any of our students if they have nothing, if they don't go beyond BC Calc in high school? Applying to engineering programs, applying to regular college programs?
I can give you the quote from the gentleman at MIT, which is, and he was head of the engineering department when I met with him. We don't need you to teach them more math. We're MIT and we're really good at it. And that was his quote. He said, what we need you to do is teach the foundation and teach it well, because we can do the rest.
I wish Ira was still here for this conversation, because every year I was chairperson when I was first hired in 2000, he kept asking me, when are we gonna do BC? Can you bring BC here? And I was like, not yet. And I just kept saying no, 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 and then finally one year I was able to say yes. And my rationale was, we wanted to make sure we did it deeply and did it right, so we needed to build up the other courses first so we can get kids ready for it. Because I think you could admit, we could probably do a bare bones BC calculus and get kids through it, but it's gonna be superficial, and we don't want to deliver students to colleges that are going to engineering programs with superficial knowledge. We want it to be deep. So I would say in the same realm, I don't think we want to go beyond BC unless we can do it really well and develop it, which means bringing it down even further, which.
And had a population to justify, right? I think as numbers go down.
Yeah, we would have to fill a class.
You don't
That
want them
impacts it
getting to
quite a bit.
differential equations when they're in college and having to back out of it to go
Right.
back into a calculus class, right?
Most, and I will say my BC students, a lot of them do start in multi and they do quite nicely.
Lisa, I think that the rationale for the strength that the kids are having in high school right now in these courses, you talked about delaying acceleration. You did and you didn't. You delayed acceleration, but you created rich tasks and everything else in all the years that preceded it, which is what you were speaking about, Tim.
Right.
Like you couldn't put BC in until you made sure the foundation was there for that.
Absolutely.
We couldn't defer this acceleration to give kids multiple pathways to get to
Absolutely.
AB and BC
100% right.
if we didn't have all of these groups, especially
Actually, Tim, sorry.
especially now at Crittenden.
Right.
who are working on rich tasks constantly and constantly
Absolutely.
being challenged.
So Tim, sorry, can you go back one slide?
Yeah, let me just say, we're not, when you say delay acceleration, that's the, pushing kids ahead to the next course, but we
Yeah.
are enriching the content in which they enter so we can go deeper.
Yep.
And that was part of working on
Absolutely.
these type of rich tasks. Which way?
Sorry, you,
Forward?
go, yes,
the-
sorry, thank you, yep, nope, right there. So the last time I was here, I had books for everyone. I just brought this to look at, but if you'd like, I can order it for you as well. So we had Peter Liljadal's book on the teaching practices that had just come out for mathematics. He has another book that is, if it has not already come out, it is October 2025 that it's coming out. So that will probably serve as our book read for next year. Last year and this year, so we did the Building Thinking Classrooms in Mathematics for 2 years, and then we switched to this, Do Not Be Fooled by the Cover. So this gentleman, Ben Orlin, has 2 other books, one that is Calculus with Bad Drawings. So the idea is to have a name that is very unassuming so that it doesn't look like a scary mathematics book. But actually the stuff in it is quite rich. And so he has these math games with bad drawings. They're all research-based. And a lot of them are what I call restaurant napkin games. So if anybody was a child of the 80s and you sat at the, at the table and then you drew the dots, thank you. And dots is in here because there is a mathematical benefit to it. So dots or any of those other games, right, where you could grab a napkin while you're eating, play it while you're waiting for your food. That's the kind of tasks that are in here. And he'll explain not just the task and not just the math behind it, but why it is important for a student's mathematical journey. And I love those because you can use them as starters, you can use them as closers. You can use them with your own kids, and we've used them from, co-taught class to the enrichment center. They are accessible to all students, and all students can feel like they're a part of them. So this book I would also highly recommend. He does have an Instagram. If you are so inclined, it would like a little math joke per day with bad drawings.
My husband would enjoy that.
He is. It is,
Early holiday gift.
He would.
Again, just keep in mind that when I say chit chat, I mean geek talk about math. So that might inform how you perceive my social media recommendations. But I do think he's quite good.
To be honest, Lisa, I walked in your office last year and I saw that on your desk and I was like, math games, I don't know, Lisa, are you slipping? And I opened it up and I was like, oh, okay, I get it. They're challenges, that's really good stuff.
And I think also, even just to tie into the AI discussion from earlier, right, students learn differently now, right? And they don't necessarily have the stamina always to sit and read for long periods of time. And what's nice about the things in this book are they are quick, high impact, low overhead strategies that I think work well with the kind of gamification that students might be used to. I have a 8th grader that loves Pokemon Go, right? He's also very mathematically inclined. But I think anytime you can kind of marry those interests or emotional needs of an 8th grader or a 10th grader or a 12th grader with mathematics, the more the better. And if someone goes home and plays it with their parents, then that's great too.
So I want to turn to Lara. I violated my own principle of keeping this under an hour. I apologize to that. We went an hour and a half. Lisa and I could talk forever, so I don't know if you have.
I can talk for much
Anyone have any other questions? No, I think we're gonna let
Thank
you
you so
go
much.
home.
You sure?
Yes, we're good.
I was prepared for so many more questions.
Although if we stay a few more minutes, you could just sleep on my couch.
That's what I thought, right?
Actually, let's give everyone like a 2-minute break to use the restroom.
Yes.
and-
Covered it.
Lisa, thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if anybody wants a copy of the book, please email me.
Fun cover.
Would you like some more chocolate?
I might take one.
Right there.
I actually want to take a quick look at it.
It's really,
So when I say it's not for myself,
Like-
I really mean it.
I mean, if you look at it, right, they have like related games to it, right?
And this is used how in the classroom?
This is actually new business.
New business, yeah.
All right.
Rewind the tape. Rewind the videotape.
New business 13.2.
Okay. New business.
Just want to give you an update on some of the corrective action in regards to the internal audit for extra classroom funds. Just some of the processes I've taken so far and just an update on that. One of the recommendations was related to providing a formal written procedure. So I've developed that with the help of Jim Gulick and Christina Pace, the extra classroom activity treasurers. We developed a manual. I'll just pull it up real quick so you can take a quick look. We're still in process of final completion of this. The majority of it is complete, but I really wanted to reflect their actual practices in compliance with the audit as well. So, you know, we've developed it together. You have links, has links for policy, forms and everything like that. So that's the first step in this process, just to develop a
Can you go to the
manual.
table of contents of it, Kelly?
Sure. Just a manual of the process going forward. So once this is complete, it'll be sent out to all the advisors, building administration, obviously the treasurers as well, so they can access it going forward.
And how often is this being monitored? Is it being monitored monthly?
The manual?
No, the club funds, is it?
The process.
Is it being monitored monthly, quarterly, like, how's it being monitored so that we hit?
You mean the
month-
funds of each
The
club,
funds of
the
each
funds
club.
of each club?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, monthly for sure. Let me, let me talk a little bit about that later. So, one of the recommendations was related to bank reconciliations, that they were signed and dated. Mostly it was related to the dating of them. So what I've done is created a shared Google Drive with myself, the district treasurer, as well as the extra classroom activity fund treasurers, where they can store all their documents and we can review them together. Bank reconciliations, all the profit and loss statements, bank deposits, everything that we talked about in terms of the recommendations are gonna be stored here. So on a monthly basis, I can review them, building administration can review them, the advisors can review them to make sure everything is there, and posted there. So it'll be a way of checks and balances in terms of.
Because we were largely
these
paper
recommendations.
before, it was paper
Yes,
pushing.
it was,
right?
yes, extra classroom treasurers would keep copies of it, put it in their box, and then we'd get a look at it at the end of the year. So this is just a way to see it on a monthly basis, make sure it's getting done. If I see the bank reconciliation doesn't have a date on it, I can see it, talk to Jim or Christina and say, you know, we need to put a date on that needs to get.
Is there a way to not let it even get to that point, like where they can't complete the form? You know, like how sometimes you can't submit something unless you fill out A, B, and C? Would it be better to have it where it can't even be submitted if that's not on there?
Right,
That
this-
way we don't miss anything.
Yeah, I mean, this is a paper document. You know, this is.
It's
bank
not a
reconciliation
paper
on
document, it's electronic, right?
The bank reconciliations that they do is a paper document.
Paper.
Right.
Could you do it as a Google form?
Yeah, we can do that.
Maybe we can
work
get
on
electronic
doing that.
signatures of the treasurers.
Sure.
And maybe that way you can't miss anything because you can't submit it if step A, B, and C aren't done. I think, I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
Totally.
it happens with everything.
then we're
I fill out
done,
online.
then it's like,
Right.
it's so much easier for you, you don't have to check. Smart.
Okay. Yeah,
If it's
I'll
possible,
touch base with them on that. That's it.
if they're comfortable giving
Electronic.
electronic signature.
One of the other comments was related to student involvement. So what I've done is I created a form that will, again, allow us to monitor when they're having their meetings, students are attending, what's being covered. This is also another comment as well in terms of having meeting attendance, having meeting agendas and meeting logs. So I created this form for all advisors to use, which will list all the president, the vice president, secretary, the treasurer of each, the meeting date, topics discussed, actions taken, and we'll be able to take attendance. So again, this is another thing that will be stored on that Google Drive, which we can look at on a monthly basis, myself, building administration, to make sure these clubs are having meetings, taking attendance, and we know there's student involvement going forward. Another recommendation was related to a list, just providing a list separated by extra class and extracurricular. Again, this is something that we're gonna send to them, but it'll be stored again on that Google Drive, so we're really clear on the difference between the two. Okay, the club, one of the recommendations was to have attendance, prepare agendas, and have minutes. Again, that's the form I just showed you, that'll have all that information. Each advisor will get a copy of their own Google sheet. they'll keep that information on that Google Sheet, and we'll be able to monitor that going forward, so we know there is attendance, there is minutes, there is agenda topics and actions taken, and again, student attendance, so we'll be able to monitor that going forward. Each of the advisors will have their own separate Google Sheet. So this comment was related to the student treasurer. So again, that Google Sheet, that financial data, here, let me show you. This is Jim Gulick's. I created this for him maybe 4 years ago. So what he does on a daily, monthly basis is record any transactions that occur for this club. This club, I believe, is the debate team. Getting balances, receipts, checks. So what we're gonna do going forward is once a student treasurer is assigned to that club, we're gonna send them this sheet, and that student will follow along and mimic what Jim's doing on a monthly basis in terms of if there's a check or there's a receipt. So that student will be involved in terms of the financial portion of that, which will satisfy that comment from the auditor related to maintaining their own set of records. Obviously, Jim will be in contact with those students, on a quarterly basis and have them sign off on the actual financial transactions, so going forward. Okay, another comment was related to creating forms for profit and loss statement as well as fundraising activities. So I've gone, Jim was very helpful in developing this profit and loss statement form that we created. Let's have you take a quick look at that. Again, this is a Google Sheet, will be saved on the Google Drive. Pretty simple in terms of format. The club, the event, activity that they're planned, the purpose of the event, and then, the cost associated with putting on this event and what they're gonna receive in terms of donations or sales. So it shows the actual difference between what they spent to have this event and what they'll actually get in revenue. So a profit and loss statement will be available. Again, that'll be saved on the Google Drive as well, so we'll be able to access that information going forward as well.
Kelly, could the athletic teams also maybe get the same copy of the fundraising
Sure.
activity
Yeah.
form?
No, definitely.
I wonder
We
if
could
that would
spread
make
that
sense
out.
for them too.
Yeah, that'd
Because
be
I know
great.
they like to do fundraising activities, and would it make sense for them to follow the same procedures as the clubs?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I don't know that we have control of it.
Theater, everything,
Right.
right?
Yep, and then another form that we've created is a approval form for fundraising. So again, club activity, event, activity plan, the purpose of the event. This would be reviewed by the principal prior to the start of the event to make sure it's appropriate for the school. And the principal will sign off on this approved, and if not, we'll give a reason for disapproval as well. So we created that form, again, will be shared on the Google Drive and stored on the Google Drive as well. One of the another comment was related to sales tax. The auditor, if you look at the auditor's report here, sales tax was noted at $4,279, but when it came over, it was $4,297. That discrepancy, we didn't submit that discrepancy. Susan found that before we sent it to the state, so it was corrected. But what I've done in their financial documents, which I showed you the debate team, I've added a tab for sales tax, which allows them to just plug in the number. We'll give them a calculation, whether it's food or clothing related, and give them the actual dollar amount. So there shouldn't be any issues in terms of, error in typing in that rate going forward. And then another recommendation was related to having student signatures on our deposits and depositing timely. They reviewed, if you look at their comment, they reviewed 30 deposits, and they had one occasion where it didn't have the student's signature. So what we're gonna do going forward is, again, we have that Google Sheet. We'll share all our monthly deposits on that, so I'll be able to review those as well as building administration and Susan, district treasurer, just to ensure that those signatures are on those on a daily.
And then if that was a Google,
basis.
if that was
If
a
that
Google
was an
form and it
electronic
was a required field,
signature, then we
make
would,
your life easy.
Yeah, could try that. I'll talk to them about that. But this way we'll be able to monitor it going forward and make sure it happens. If we get one that doesn't have a student signature, I can send it back and make sure the student.
just make sure electronic signatures are allowed in these cases.
Yeah, I'll find that out. I'll talk to you all about that idea. What's that? Yep, okay, good idea. And then a recommendation in terms of they took a sample of our disbursements, our payments. They noted one instance where it was missing an invoice, and one instance where the student's signature wasn't there. So again, we're gonna create that Google Drive for these payments. They'll save them there, so we'll be able to see if those payments have those signatures. And again, if they don't, we can return it to the treasurer and have them correct that issue. Okay, so just want to give you a brief steps that we've taken so far. I'll come back in January to give you some further details, and then going forward in March and June, sum up the end of this process, so we know where we've ended again to resolve all these issues in terms of the audit.
Thank
So
you.
what can we expect in January? Will we have all the paperwork from the clubs up until December?
Yep, you should have all that information. It will be saved on that drive, so we can review some of them. We can pull some samples to take a look, that you can see that, the deposits were signed or the backup was appropriately signed by the student treasurer. All that stuff we will see in January. Okay.
Kelly, is there anywhere in here where your office catalogs what date things were reviewed?
Yeah, no, but we can definitely add that. Yeah, I was gonna do
That
it.
might be helpful too for the January meeting, to say on these dates, sort of a spreadsheet for you, like on these dates, these were reviewed.
Yep.
Were there any discrepancies found? So sort of a reporting out.
My plan was to put it in my
status on
calendar on a monthly basis to review, bank reconciliations, one portion of it, and just do it on a monthly basis and
We
just.
could also do in the finance advisory, we could take a sample in.
Sure.
If you want, and that way, that might be a nice monthly check-in, since I think we have monthly meetings.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because all of this is really only as good as the monitoring of it.
Absolutely.
Okay with you guys, sorry, I'm speaking for my three.
But it's great that it's all in one place and streamlined, so you can have
Yeah,
everything.
I think that makes it easier, and then,
Yeah.
it'll all be there, we can all check it, make sure it's
You
done.
also have a lot of people checking it.
Yes.
You have
It's not Tuesday,
the
'cause that's-
advisors, you have principals checking it, you're checking it, Susan.
Susan, yeah,
But if you can sort of set the timestamps up for
Sure.
yourself, that
yeah,
would.
that's a good idea.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion to accept the external audit report 24-25 fiscal year, extra classroom activity fund report and management letter?
We did that,
We did
at
that,
the beginning.
and, we have to do the next.
After Chris gave his,
I thought
We
that
did
was the
that.
one
We
we were
did
coming
that.
back
No,
to.
the one we were coming back to was the one about the
AP.
it's the next one, it's
Yeah.
the
APPR.
APPR.
undue.
First we got
or
13.3, and then 13.4 is what
Undue
we're going
burden.
with.
Okay,
13.4.
can I get a motion to approve APR undue burden independent evaluation report?
So moved.
No, is that it? No.
Yeah,
Yes,
that was
that's
it.
what it is.
Okay.
Second. Melissa's
I
made a
in
motion.
favor?
Second.
Okay.
Thank you.
Policy.
Do you want me to speak to it, or I think you've heard about this every year for the last many years.
Yeah.
It's an annual thing, and it's written in your thing. I just need the board president's signature, but we'll get that.
I think she signed everything she needed to sign, otherwise I can sign it.
No, because I have it, yeah, I get it.
Do we need to
Yeah,
vote?
we
to vote on that
to
one?
sign it on her behalf.
I think she signed before she left, no?
Not this
She
one,
signed
but
it.
Okay.
I didn't give
Do
it to
you
her.
want me to sign it? Can I sign it?
Yeah,
You
I
can
can
sign
have her
it.
sign it,
I think Mia can sign it.
You can sign it on her.
yeah, so I'll sign it
Yeah.
afterwards.
Okay. Policy committee,
President Pro Tem.
yes?
Yes,
Gina.
review policies.
Hi, everyone. Well, before I start, thank you to Lori, Petri, and Jason for your help, and Tim and Jen for these policies for their first read. There are 3 of them tonight, and generally all of them have a similar theme in terms of our responsibility to ensuring that our student, teacher, and administrative personal identifiable information is kept private. So I will share just some minor updates and be brief in my review. But the first one, 1120R, is school district records regulation. This policy, just as an overview, it really details our compliance with the New York State Freedom of Information Law, so FOIL, and how we our appropriate management of records. The main points in this policy, it was just updated just a couple of years ago, but just for a refresher, the main points are our compliance and access. So when anyone in our district or outside asks for information, that we have clear procedures following compliance and regulations surrounding FOIL, that we designate officers, or our records access officer and our management officer, and that we are mindful of the timeline that is required in which we receive a request, when we respond, and how many days that we have until we produce that particular record. The main reason this is brought back to the policy committee is really in the last section, which is the prevention of unwarranted invasion of privacy. And here we have language that was inserted into the policy to, again, ensure that we are following the provisions of Ed Law 2D and keeping our student, teacher, and administrative personal identifiable information protected, and that we have to comply with both Ed Law 2D and New York State Section 121. So that's that particular policy. Any questions on that? Okay. The next one is 5500 student records. Essentially here, again, our main reason for the update is to reflect our responsibility under Ed Law 2D, and this time speaking to FERPA, which is the Federal Educational Privacy Act and Rights. Here we talk about the fact that for any homeless students that we have in the district, that their living situation be not treated as information for the directory, and also conforms to the guidance from New York State Ed regarding Parents' Bill of Rights for data privacy and security. And again, that protects our students' information, identifiable information, when we receive requests from third-party contractors for their information. So again, just an update and an insertion of our responsibility under Ed Law 2D and Parent Bill of Rights. And then finally, 8635, information and data privacy, security, breach, and notification. And as I shared with the committee when we met, I did meet with Kevin Guadati just for him to have his eyes on this policy and to give us any additional updates that he felt were necessary. This policy governs how school districts protect the personal identifiable information of students, teachers, and principals, and ensures that we're in compliance with Ed Law 2D. We also, very important within this policy, speaks to our data security program focus on protecting our data, access control, and how we respond in the event that there's a security breach. So here, twofold, you'll see on the agenda tonight too, that 8635E1, which is its own policy in the Parents' Bill of Rights. The recommendation from New York State was to include these Bill of Rights within our 8635 policy. So we are proposing to abolish this as its own separate exhibit and to insert it into our policy 8635. And again, that Parent Bill of Rights is there for information for our parents in the event that we receive request to release information.
And substantively, it's still the same, right? It should look
It's
the
exact.
same.
In
Yeah.
fact, what NISBA had given us when Kevin and I were comparing, our Parents' Bill of Rights is quite comprehensive compared to what was suggested in the sample. So it's what they suggested, what was required, and then some in terms of what we have for our Parent Bill of Rights.
Got it.
Yeah.
So parents still have the same rights,
Yeah.
it's just in
Yeah.
a different place.
Exactly, and I should say all the policies that I just reviewed tonight, there's nothing really in content that's changed, but it's really just a tightening and ensuring that we are always inserting that language into our policies as it comes to, just protecting identifiable information.
Thank you, Gina.
Thank you.
Can I have a motion to approve the first read, 1120R, School District Regulation, Regulation 5500 Student Records, 8635 Information and Data Privacy, Security, Breach, and Notification, and for deletion 8635E.1 Parents' Bill of Rights for Student Data Privacy and Security.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Mia,
Staff reports.
Before we get to that, can we also talk a little bit about the policy committee has been working on a policy called track, field, and court lighting and sound policy. We have been looking at that policy for the new installation of lights that is expected next summer. We have been working on that. The athletic advisory has looked at that policy as well. I am sending a letter out to anyone who flanks our borders of our school district to let them know that we are developing a policy that the board should be seeing, I would say, in November, right? First read would probably be in November. And then typically, the board meeting after that, we have a second read and we adopt it. So we do 2 readings and then adopt. And at that time, we'll probably make a recommendation to hold on the second read until my letters have gone out. We've had chances to see if anybody from the community would like to speak. I've met with 3 different families already who flank our borders, who were really supportive of making sure the policy included things that the district should have, and they are supporters of our school district, and I thank them very much for their collaboration on that policy. But we will anticipate first read coming out in about November, second read not following right away, to just give for some time. So you'll be seeing that. And thank you to Athletic Advisory and everybody who was a part of policy committee, everybody who weighed in on that one. And staff reports.
Before staff reports, was there anything related to 13.3, or is it just the enrollment numbers, the beds numbers, or is it just reporting?
No, yeah, we kind of skipped over that, but those are just our
They're
best
just the
numbers.
high school
went up and
Just the numbers.
every other school
Yeah.
was, it went down, right? The high school numbers went up and then all the other schools went down.
Other way around, high school numbers went
Down
down,
and
every
all the
other
other
school
ones
went
went
up.
Oh, but I think versus the projections. I think
I'm
that's
thinking about the
Oh.
That's
projections,
what you-
sorry, that's what I was
Okay.
talking about.
Yeah.
Yep, yeah.
I was like, I
Because
The
sometimes- yeah.
projections are usually pretty close though, I have to say, they surprised me that way.
Introductions to Chinese.
Any staff reports?
I have something after, but that's board reports, right?
That's board
First,
reports,
Yeah, no, I think we've covered, you're covered.
Just real quick, just to talk about the world language study.
Oh, yeah.
I wanna thank Melissa for stepping in for Lori and Larry who could be there, so we have a great committee,
It was
but
excellent.
you can stay a permanent member, that's fine,
I'd
the
love
more
to.
the merrier, another parent
Thanks,
reached
I'm
out. So we had a great meeting, we had an introduction to Chinese where we actually learned Chinese, it's quite complicated. But Kelsey McGuff, who's our E&L teacher, who is fluent in Mandarin, gave us a little lesson so we could learn what it's like to be a new learner. We read some new research over the summer, so we discussed that research. Dave presented on the WAMPA's schedule, so if we're looking at trying to do anything foreign language at the elementary school, there are mandates that we have to meet and certain requirements in terms of our curriculum, what would have to give and how would it possibly fit into the WAMPA schedule. And then we are visiting 2 other neighboring districts that have programs at the elementary school. There's not many, some have recently gotten rid of their foreign language at the elementary school. But we're gonna do a visit to 2 neighboring districts that are letting us come in and look, and we have some elements we're
Do
gonna be
you
looking at.
know off the top of your head what they're teaching at the elementary? Are
What
they-
subjects?
Yeah.
Generally it's Spanish.
I mean, it's also interesting to speak to the districts who've gotten rid of them and find
That's
out
what- yeah.
why.
Yep, and I will, and I think a lot of it has to do with, what we learned in the research is that it has to do with a high quality teacher who is a native speaker, if it's gonna have any impact. And I think there's a real shortage of foreign language teachers at all levels.
Yes.
And we're
We've seen
experiencing that, and that's part of our data as well that we'll talk about at our study. So that's the main reason that I think that I'm hearing from neighboring districts that have gotten rid of it. These 2 districts still have programs, they're happy to support us, we're gonna go look, talk to them, but a lot of these programs, there's only 1 district that does it on a daily basis. This is aside from dual language programs, that's a whole separate issue.
Yeah.
Several districts do that because there's a need in their community for that, but other
And they
districts.
also have 50% or more native speakers.
Exactly, which is
We
where
also
I
have
was
federal
going
and
to.
state funding that we don't get.
Yeah, so most districts do it on like once a cycle or twice a cycle, which is like every 6 days or something like that. And then we, what the research shows is that really impactful to students learning the language. So we started to talk about clarifying what our goals are for bringing language to the elementary level. And then we talked about future topics, and so these are some things we'll address in future meetings, looking at the changes to the AP world, getting feedback from the expectations at the colleges, doing focus groups with students, looking at language, how early language can impede the students' language processing with processing issues, and then looking at the candidate pool. And there's some other topics as well. So those are some things we're gonna look at in the future as well. Sort of moving away from just FLES, but making this a bigger study.
Yeah, I think the focus group will be helpful.
Yeah.
I think the college admissions, it's not only admissions, but it's also like you have requirements.
Exactly.
Because I think a lot of people,
Yeah.
once they get surprised that
And
even if they've been away.
You have to take a language if you didn't take
Unless you
it.
place out.
Yeah, we wanna hear from students, so Melissa and I are gonna set up focus groups with kids who have dropped it after sophomore year or junior year.
I
why
want
they
Dylan
drop
to be
language.
in one of those, cause he dropped it after junior year, like my third child. pretty much.
Well, it would be interesting too to look at what are the top colleges that our kids have applied to and gotten into over the last 5 years. How many of them have a language requirement for the first year,
We'll look at that.
right?
Yes.
So kids are more knowledgeable of,
Right.
this is the bulk of schools we apply to, and they require, like 70% of them require our language.
Exactly, yeah.
Give them
So there's a lot more to study. This is going beyond just a FLUS study into a bigger study. So we may wrap up part of it, do sort of a mid-year report, and then continue some other elements of it in the future. We'll decide that together as a committee. So I
Thanks
just
for
wanna give
picking
you.
this up again.
Thank you,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Melissa, for
Always
coming.
new stuff to learn.
We can't say, we did a study 12 years ago.
I know, right? Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank
Board
you.
reports?
A little quick something. First of all, just to piggyback on what Tim said, even though he covered it perfectly and so quickly. It was a very robust discussion about the challenges and benefits of how we can think about bringing languages into the elementary schools. And I thought some people had some interesting ideas about things that they had seen at different schools about ways to do that. So I know that Tim is doing a great job of delving into all of that and seeing how that's gonna be for, if we decide to, that fits into our programming. And also to piggyback on what you said about discussions for the future, we also talked a little bit about looking at the new instructional tools and practices since our last studying of this topic in 2009, to help us see if there are any updates that we can use for our curriculum and using technology and other kinds of things that have changed since 2009. So that was excellent, and thank you, Tim, because it was an excellent discussion. And then just a quick report on the PTSA meeting that I attended. As always, the PTSA is busy doing lots of things. Yes, there were the book fairs. I know some were already happened, some are still to come, but I know a lot of volunteers are working really hard to put those together. I know they had PARP, right? Parents as Reading Partners, which was great. You remember all that?
Everything's back, it's nice
Yeah,
that it's all back
yeah.
in person.
And I know that the PTSA talked also about looking for more volunteers at Wampus and Coman Hill, so for the community, if anybody's interested, I know they're always happy to have extra hands on deck.
Thank you, Courtney Sokol, for standing up to be president.
What's that?
Courtney Sokol as president.
Oh, she's
the president, so.
terrific.
It's always great when someone stands up for that responsibility.
Fantastic, and it's a great committee and a lot of active people, so that's mostly it. They're doing a lot of other stuff down the pike. I know they were gonna maybe sell flowers at some of the musicals, so lots of great fundraising, and we appreciate their partnership as always.
Thank you, Melissa. Any other board reports?
I'll say one more thing, I forgot to promote PALS, the next series is going to be on executive function, which I've been hearing a lot of need for from our parent community. So we have 2 sessions coming up in November, on November 3rd and 6th, one geared toward middle school, one geared toward high school. So they'll both be in the evening, and I'll be setting out a blast soon, so you'll get that, so I can report that now.
And you had a great turnout at the Carolyn Strom.
How students learn to read. We had 40
It was amazing.
families there and a great in-depth discussion, very rich, really great feedback. I do a survey after each event, so I'll summarize that for the BHEF as well, but really great feedback.
Thank you, Tim.
Also, we had our town liaison meeting.
I wasn't there.
Right, I'll just be Lara. We had the town liaison meeting, just so everyone knows, they've started construction on Enclave, which is airport campus, and that is fee simple.
It's feasible, and remind us how many units do you
And
know?
it's going to be 125 townhomes and 50 age restricted condominiums. And what they are doing is they are partnering with Westchester Joint Water to be able to provide water there. And the goal is that that water is going to be piped up to Byram Hills High School eventually. So they need health department approval, but they are on board with that commitment to us to try to help us make that happen.
Get off of well.
Yeah, yeah, we'll help the school, we'll help Windmill, Windmill, I don't know if it were just the school, if there would be such a pressing need, but Windmill has a pressing need for water, so that was really the big draw. And they're looking for an area for a tank, so we are going to have to look at our property to see if there's, not a tank like the tank on 22.
No.
No, not a tank like that. And that's it.
Do they
from the
pay,
town.
do they lease space? How does that work?
We don't know that yet, we're not there yet.
We'll
I like
discuss,
that.
yeah.
So our next meeting is October 31st, and it's going to be at Byram Hills High School, so the town supervisor will get a real glimpse at what it's like to be in the high school on Halloween.
Okay. Thank you. Any communications to the board?
No.
Approval of the board minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from September 16th?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I'm always the first to
All
move
in
on.
favor?
That's a good one.
I literally look
And Dylan, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for our
today.
present.
Good presentation.
Dylan, very